So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the host of Zarathos and Kurama, the spirit of Vengeful. El Grace Naruto x Magik x Satana Hellstrom, Marvel Comics. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Spirits Within. The midnight air in Konoha carried an unnatural chill as Naruto Uzumaki sat alone atop the fourth Hokage's stone face. Moonlight washed over his features, casting half his face in silver light, the other in shadow. An unconscious reflection of the dual natures warring within him. His usual orange jacket lay discarded beside him, his black undershirt revealing unusual markings that occasionally pulsed with a glow. That was neither chakra nor any energy recognized in the shinobi world. "They're getting louder," he whispered to the empty night, fingers absently tracing the spiral seal on his stomach that had begun to change. Black lines occasionally shifting to a molten orange before settling again. "Both of you." Inside his mindscape, two entities circled each other, one a massive nine-tailed fox comprised of swirling orange energy. The other a being of constantly shifting form, sometimes appearing as a skeletal figure wreathed in chains and fire, other times as a beautiful angel with burning eyes that held no mercy. Between them stretched a web of golden chains that neither could break, binding them to each other and to their human host. Naruto's 16th birthday had passed 3 days prior, marked not by celebration but by the first coherent words he'd heard from the second entity, the one that wasn't Kurama, the one that had slumbered until recently. "The guilty must face judgment, Naruto Uzumaki. You have been chosen." A twig snapped behind him, instantly silencing his internal dialogue. He didn't turn, didn't need to. His senses had sharpened dramatically in recent weeks. He could smell the Anbu operative. Could sense the curious blend of duty and suspicion emanating from the masked figure. "It's late, Uzumaki," came the emotionless voice. "The Hokage requests your presence." Naruto finally turned, his normally bright blue eyes reflecting the moonlight with an unsettling golden flicker. "At midnight. Must be important." The Anbu, one Naruto recognized by scent as Tenzo, Huff he now went by Yamato, shifted almost imperceptibly. "There's been an incident. A missing nin was found." Changed. Changed how? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer but needing confirmation. "Burned from the inside out." His eyes. Yamato paused, professionalism briefly overwhelmed by remembered horror. His eyes were completely white, and witnesses claim he repeatedly screamed about his sins before dying. Naruto stood, retrieving his jacket with deliberate slowness. His movements had changed recently. Gone was the hyperactive bouncing, replaced by an economy of motion that suggested both strength and restraint. "And Granny Tsunade thinks I'm involved. She has questions," Yamato answered neutrally. "They suspect, but they do not understand." The voice that wasn't Kurama whispered in Naruto's mind. "They cannot comprehend what dwells within you now." Shut up. Naruto thought back. "They're already suspicious enough without you making me look crazy by talking to myself." A dark chuckle, like burning coals shifting in a fire pit, echoed through his consciousness. "They should fear what we are becoming, little vessel." Naruto followed Yamato across the rooftops of Konoha, acutely aware of the changes in his body. Each leap carried him farther than should be possible, each landing softer than physics should allow. His vision had sharpened to see heat signatures in the darkness. And something else, a strange aura around certain people that seemed to reflect guilt. Sin. He wasn't sure what to call it yet. The Hokage Tower windows glowed with light despite the late hour. As they approached, Naruto detected multiple heartbeats inside Tsunade's office, the Hokage herself, Shizune, Kakashi, and someone else whose chakra signature he didn't recognize. "Wait here," Yamato instructed when they reached the antechamber. "I'll inform the Hokage you've arrived." Alone momentarily, Naruto closed his eyes and dropped into his mindscape. The landscape had changed dramatically. What once was a simple sewer now resembled a bizarre fusion of ancient temple and volcanic cavern, with massive chains of golden energy crisscrossing the space. "Kurama," Naruto addressed the fox directly. "What do you know about him?" He gestured toward the fiery entity that had taken to calling itself Zarathos. The 9 tails growled, tails lashing against their shared confinement. "He is not of our world, Kit." When your father sealed me inside you, something went wrong. Or perhaps, as this one claims, exactly according to some greater design. He was drawn through a tear between dimensions. Caught in the same sealing matrix. I am Zarathos, the burning entity stated, voice resonating with ancient power. Spirit of vengeance, judgment of the wicked. In your world, I have no counterpart, yet I have always existed wherever sin flourishes. And that missing nin, Naruto demanded, did we do something to him while I was asleep? Zarathos's form shifted, becoming momentarily more solid, a skeleton wreathed in flame, wearing what looked like leather armor adorned with spikes and chains. He murdered 17 children during the last war, cutting trophies from their bodies. He never faced judgment, until now. Naruto felt sick, but we can't just. Naruto. Yamato's voice jerked him back to reality. The Hokage will see you now. He blinked, disoriented by the rapid transition, and stepped into Tsunade's office. The fifth Hokage looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes as she studied him with uncharacteristic wariness. Naruto, she acknowledged, gesturing to an empty chair. Sit. He complied, immediately noticing the unfamiliar presence he'd sensed earlier, a woman with platinum blonde haircut in a severe bob, wearing what appeared to be armor unlike any shinobi design he'd seen. Metal plates covered portions of her body, inscribed with symbols that made his eyes hurt if he looked directly at them. Beneath the armor, she wore a form-fitting black suit with silver highlights. Her eyes, however, were what captured his attention, blue but with occasional flickers of light that reminded him of teleportation jutsu. This is Ileana Rasputina, Tsunade introduced without preamble. She appeared in Konoha yesterday through means our barrier team cannot explain, asking specifically for the vessel containing 2 spirits. Tsunade's amber eyes narrowed. Care to explain why a stranger from another dimension is looking for you, Naruto? The woman, Ileana, studied him with calculating intensity. When she spoke, her accent was unlike anything Naruto had heard before. The dimensional barriers are thinning between our worlds. I felt the disturbance 3 moons ago when Zarathos crossed over. Such a transit should be impossible without specific sorcery. Zarathos, Kakashi asked, his visible eye focused on Naruto's reaction. Do not reveal everything, Zarathos cautioned within Naruto's mind. The woman is dang ruse. She wields power over the dimension called Limbo. But she knows about you. Naruto argued internally. She might have answers. Externally, Naruto maintained a careful neutral expression. That's what it calls itself. The other thing inside me, not the 9 tails. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Shizune gasped softly while Tsunade's knuckles whitened against her desk. Explain, the Hokage demanded. Now, Naruto took a deep breath. It started about 6 months ago. Strange dreams, burning sensations in my chest. At first, I thought it was just the 9 tails acting up again, but it felt different. Then on my birthday, I heard it speak clearly for the first time. It called itself Zarathos, said it was a spirit of vengeance. And the missing nin? Kakashi asked quietly. Naruto's eyes met his former sensei's. I don't remember doing anything. I went to bed, and then I woke up back in my apartment. But I think it might have used my body while I was sleeping. It judges the guilty, Ileana interjected, stepping closer. That is Zarathos's purpose. He punishes those who have escaped mortal justice, burns the sin from their souls. She turned to Tsunade. Your missing nin, was he guilty of terrible crimes? Tsunade exchanged glances with Kakashi before nodding reluctantly. He was a war criminal from the Third Shinobi War. Specialized in targeting civilian children to draw out their shinobi parents. Then Zarathos found him worthy of judgment, Ileana concluded. It's beginning already. What's beginning? Naruto asked, a chill running down his spine. Ileana's blue eyes fixed on him with uncomfortable intensity. The merging. Zarathos doesn't simply possess hosts, he transforms them. And with the 9-tailed entity already within you, the combination is unprecedented. She knows too much, Kurama growled within Naruto's mind. She knows what I am, Zarathos countered. She has encountered my kind before. Before the conversation could continue, an explosion rocked the village, the shockwave shattering the office windows. Everyone instinctively ducked except Ileana, who muttered words in a language Naruto didn't recognize. Her hands making complex gestures. A glowing circle of light appeared beneath her feet, inscribed with symbols similar to those on her armor. Demons, she stated flatly. They've found a way through. Tsunade was already on her feet, barking orders to Yamato who had burst back into the room. Full alert. Get civilians to the shelters. Kakashi moved to the shattered window, Sharingan exposed. Scanning the village. Multiple incursion points. These aren't summons or any creature I recognize. Naruto felt something shift inside him, a burning sensation spreading through his veins. His vision swam, colors shifting to heat signatures and something else. He could suddenly see lines of power running through the village, connections between people, and dark tears appearing in the fabric of reality itself. They're coming for me, he realized aloud. Or for what's inside me. They hunt Zarathos, Kurama confirmed. But they will find more than they bargained for. Ileana turned toward him, her right arm transforming before everyone's eyes, flesh becoming silver metal from fingertips to elbow, forming into what appeared to be a massive sword that gleamed within her light. They hunt us both. I've been running from them across dimensions. They serve beings that want both Zarathos and my soulsword. Naruto, stay here where we can. Tsunade began, but Naruto was already moving. They're after me, he interrupted, a new certainty in his voice. I won't let them destroy the village to get to me. He leapt through the shattered window before anyone could stop him. Chakra automatically cushioning his landing on a rooftop below. From this vantage point, he could see them, creatures that seemed made of shadow and flame, tearing through the night air with unnatural speed. They didn't move like summons or any creature he recognized, they flowed like liquid darkness, reforming constantly. Let me show you how to fight them. Zarathos' voice resonated through his mind. No longer a whisper but a commanding presence. No, Naruto countered. I'll use my own power first. I'm not giving you control. He formed a familiar hand sign, creating dozens of shadow clones that spread out through the village. Through their eyes, he tracked the invasion, at least 30 of the shadow creatures, focusing their attacks on the shinobi attempting to intercept them. A flash of silver caught his attention. Ileana, leaping from the Hokage tower, her sword cleaving through one of the creatures with surprising effectiveness. The severed portions didn't regenerate but instead dissolved into smoke that dispersed in the night air. They're weak against her weapon. Naruto called out to nearby shinobi. Support her. He launched himself toward the closest cluster of creatures. Rasengan forming in his palm. As he slammed the spiraling chakra into the nearest shadow being, he felt his technique change, the normally blue energy taking on an orange-red tinge. The creature screeched, a sound that seemed to vibrate on multiple frequencies, before disintegrating. Your chakra and my hellfire are beginning to merge, Zarathos observed with satisfaction. Embrace it. 3 more creatures converged on Naruto's position, moving faster than civilian eyes could track. He dodged the first, counterattacked the second with a kick that should have been ordinary but instead left a trail of flame in its wake. The third creature slammed into him, cold like the void of space, draining chakra on contact. Pain erupted across Naruto's chest as the creature's touch left frost-like burns. He stumbled, momentarily vulnerable as the other creatures circled. Yield to me, Zarathos demanded within him. Let me protect our vessel. Not yet, Naruto gasped, forcing himself back to his feet. He could sense Kurama's chakra surging, ready to envelop him in the fox cloak, but something was different. The red energy was shot through with chains of golden fire. A shadow creature lunged, faster than Naruto could react in his injured state. Before it reached him, a circle of light appeared between them, and Ileana emerged, her sword cleaving the creature in two. You can't fight them conventionally, she said, standing back to back with him as more creatures approached. They're limbo demons. They feed on chakra, on life energy. Then what hurts them? Naruto asked, breathing heavily. Soul energy. My soulsword. And, she glanced at him meaningfully, hellfire. One of Naruto's shadow clones dispersed nearby, sending him a memory of civilians trapped in a building surrounded by the creatures. Without hesitation, he created more clones to help with evacuation efforts while he and Ileana fought to keep the creatures contained. Across the village, Kakashi and a squad of Anbu were discovering the limitations of normal jutsu against these otherworldly threats. Lightning techniques slowed them but didn't destroy them. Earth jutsu temporarily trapped them before they simply phased through the barriers. Fall back to defensive positions. Kakashi ordered. Priority is civilian evacuation. Naruto heard the order through one of his clones. The creatures were spreading, causing more damage as conventional attacks proved increasingly ineffective. More shinobi were being injured, their chakra drained on contact with the shadow beings. Asterisk. They will destroy everything to get to us, Zarathos stated. Your hesitation costs lives. Asterisk. A child's scream cut through the chaos. A young girl, no more than 6, cornered by one of the creatures as it reached for her with elongated claws. Naruto's clone was too far away, would never reach her in time. Something snapped inside him. Fine, he whispered. Show me. The change was immediate and dramatic. Fire erupted from Naruto's body, but not the red chakra cloak of the 9 tails. This was different. Golden flames that didn't burn his clothes or skin but radiated outward with terrible purpose. His eyes transformed. Blue irises replaced by burning white light. Chains of the same golden fire materialized around his arms, hanging loose like weapons waiting to be wielded. When he spoke, his voice carried dual tones, his own layered with something ancient and terrible. You dare hunt me through an innocent village. You dare threaten children before me. The nearest shadow creatures actually retreated, their fluid movements becoming erratic with what appeared to be fear. Naruto, or what Naruto was becoming, raised a hand, and one of the fiery chains lashed out with impossible speed, wrapping around the nearest creature. Where the links touched, the shadow being began to disintegrate, not into smoke but into nothing at all, as if its very essence was being consumed. Ileana watched with wide eyes. Her soulsword lowering slightly. Zarathos, she whispered. But different. The 9 tails is changing the manifestation. Naruto Zarathos moved through the battlefield with preternatural grace. Chains lashing out to ensnare creature after creature. Each one that was caught seemed to burn from within before vanishing completely. The remaining shadow beings began to retreat, flowing back toward the tears in reality they had emerged from. Not so fast, Naruto Zarathos growled, raising both hands. The chains extended in all directions, forming a dome-like web over a significant portion of the village. You came for judgment. You shall receive it. The golden fire spread along the chains until the entire structure blazed with light, illuminating the village like a second sun had dawned. Within this dome, every shadow creature froze in place, unable to move or flee. Naruto Zarathos closed his fists, and the chains contracted, touching each creature simultaneously. For the threat to the innocent. For the chaos you have wrought, face judgment. The creatures didn't simply die. They unraveled, their very essence consumed by the golden fire until nothing remained. As the last one vanished, the chains retracted, flowing back into Naruto's body. The golden flames dimmed, and he fell to one knee, gasping. Ileana approached cautiously, her sword still drawn but pointed downward. That was not how Zarathos typically manifests. Naruto looked up at her, his eyes slowly returning to their normal blue. What happened to me? You allowed Zarathos partial control. But the 9 tails influenced the manifestation. She knelt beside him, studying his face with clinical interest. Typically, when Zarathos takes a host, the transformation is more complete, what my world calls a ghost rider. But your other tenant appears to be moderating the change. Around them, shinobi were cautiously approaching, weapons still drawn. Kakashi arrived first, his Sharingan scanning Naruto carefully. Naruto, he asked carefully, are you still, you? Before Naruto could answer, Ileana stood and faced Kakashi. He needs space. The first manifestation is always disorienting. And you know this how, exactly? Tsunade demanded, arriving with Anbu flanking her. Ileana's expression hardened, because of spent years studying dimensional boundaries and the entities that cross them. I'm the ruler of Limbo. Those creatures were once under my control before someone, started turning them against me. Another dimensional traveler, Naruto managed, climbing shakily to his feet. Someone who knows about both Zarathos and you. She speaks truth, Zarathos confirmed within Naruto's mind. But not all of it. Asterisk. What isn't she telling us? Naruto questioned internally. The creatures bear the mark of her brother, Zarathos answered. Though he may not control them directly. Externally, Naruto fixed Ileana with a steady gaze. These creatures, they're connected to your brother, aren't they? The shock that flashed across Ileana's face confirmed Zarathos's insight before she could compose herself. How could you possibly know that? Zarathos knows things, Naruto replied simply. About your world, about Limbo. He says these creatures bear your brother's mark. Tsunade stepped between them, authority radiating from her stance. I think it's time we continued this discussion somewhere more secure. Naruto, Ileana, to the Anbu headquarters. Now, wait, Naruto said, suddenly alert. There's another breach forming. Everyone tensed, following Naruto's gaze toward the village gates. A shimmer appeared in the air, like heat rising from sun-baked stone, gradually widening into what appeared to be a tear in reality itself. Unlike the chaotic rifts the shadow creatures had used, this opening was precise, controlled. A figure stepped through, human in appearance, tall and imposing with aristocratic features. He wore a high-collared cloak of deep green over what appeared to be formal attire from a culture none of them recognized. His eyes, however, were his most striking feature, entirely black except for pinpricks of red light where pupils should be. Baron Mordo, Ileana hissed, her arm transforming back into the soulsword. How did you find this dimension? The man smiled, a cold expression that never reached those disturbing eyes. My dear Ileana, did you think your dimensional jumping would go unnoticed? Especially when you're tracking something as significant as a spirit of vengeance. He turned his attention to Naruto, studying him with clinical interest. Fascinating. The vessel contains both Zarathos and some manner of chakra beast. Two spirits that should destroy each other, yet here they coexist. The master will be most interested. You're not taking him anywhere, Tsunade stated flatly, stepping forward with chakra visibly gathering around her fists. Baron Mordo chuckled, making a dismissive gesture. Tsunade froze mid-step, caught in some invisible force. Your energies are impressive, but crude. Chakra is but one form of dimensional manipulation. My sorcery predates your shinobi arts by millennia. Naruto felt Zarathos surging within him again, but differently, not taking control but offering power. Similarly, Kurama's chakra rose to the surface, the two energies intertwining rather than fighting each other. Let her go, Naruto demanded, his voice steady despite the maelstrom of power building inside him. Mordo studied him with growing interest. Command me again, boy, and I'll show you what true power looks like. Inside his mindscape, Naruto stood between Kurama and Zarathos. I need both of you, but I stay in control. Agreed. Kurama growled but nodded reluctantly. Your body couldn't handle another full possession so soon anyway. Zarathos's form shifted, becoming more defined, a burning skeleton in leather armor adorned with spikes and chains. Agreed. But know this. Baron Mordo serves a greater evil. He must not be allowed to report what he has found here. Naruto opened his eyes in the physical world, now glowing with a blend of Kurama's red chakra and Zarathos's golden fire. Last chance, he warned Mordo. Leave now. The sorcerer's expression shifted from amusement to calculation. You haven't fully bonded with either entity yet. You're powerful but untrained, unfocused. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, chains of golden fire beginning to materialize around his arms again, but I'm not alone. A silver blur flashed past him, Ileana attacking with unprecedented speed. Her soulsword aimed directly at Mordo's chest. The sorcerer barely managed to deflect the blow with a shield of green energy that materialized inches from his body. The distraction was enough to break his hold on Tsunade, who immediately dropped to a combat stance. Around them, Anbu and Jonin formed a perimeter, though most seemed uncertain how to engage such an unusual enemy. Mordo retreated a step, hands weaving complex patterns that left trails of green light in the air. The Sorcerer Supreme sent you, didn't he? Strange always was too cautious about dimensional boundaries. Dr. Strange doesn't know I'm here, Ileana replied, circling for another attack. This is personal. Naruto extended his senses, something he'd never been able to do before. And detected energy building around Mordo, not chakra but something similar to what Ileana used, though tainted with a darkness that made his skin crawl. He's preparing something big, Naruto warned. Everyone get back. Mordo's hands completed a final gesture, and the ground beneath their feet transformed, no longer the streets of Konoha but a warped landscape that seemed composed of fragments of different realities stitched together. Buildings bent at impossible angles, streets turned vertical before disappearing into swirling vortices, and the sky above fractured into panels showing different worlds. "Welcome to the junction," Mordo announced, his voice echoing strangely. "A place between dimensions where I hold the advantage." Naruto stumbled, disoriented by the sudden transition, but Ileana seemed unfazed. "Mirror dimension manipulation," she observed. "Impressive, but I've ruled Limbo for years. Your parlor tricks don't frighten me." She stabbed her soulsword into the ground, and reality rippled outward from the point of contact. Portions of Konoha reasserted themselves, the warped landscape partially reverting to normal. Mordo snarled, hands flashing through more gestures. "Impudent child, you may rule Limbo, but you are still bound by its rules. I serve powers beyond your comprehension." The distortion intensified around them, reality becoming increasingly unstable. Naruto felt both Zarathos and Kurama reacting within him, not fighting each other but working in concert for the first time. Power flooded his system, different from either entity individually, a synthesis of both their natures. Chains of fire erupted from the ground around him, not the golden fire of Zarathos alone but a complex weave of red chakra and golden flame. The chains shot outward, anchoring into points of reality, literally holding pieces of Konoha in place against Mordo's dimensional manipulation. "What is this?" Mordo demanded, genuine surprise in his voice. "The spirit of vengeance cannot manipulate reality itself." "Maybe not alone," Naruto managed through gritted teeth, the strain of channeling so much power evident. "But I'm not just Zarathos's vessel." Ileana seized the opportunity, launching herself at Mordo again, her soulsword aimed at his heart. The sorcerer barely managed to avoid the lethal strike, the blade instead slicing across his shoulder. Energy poured from the wound rather than blood, and Mordo screamed, not in pain but in rage. "You'll pay for that, Rasputina," he snarled, making a grabbing motion toward her. Bands of green energy materialized around Ileana's arms and legs, constricting with obvious force. Naruto reacted instinctively, one of his chains lashing out to wrap around Mordo's extended arm. Where the links touched the sorcerer's skin, they seared through his protective spells, drawing another howl of pain. "You don't belong in this world," Naruto stated, his voice carrying that dual tone again as more chains extended toward Mordo. "And you threatened my village." For the first time, a flicker of fear crossed Mordo's aristocratic features. "This isn't over," he declared, making a slashing motion with his free hand. A portal opened behind him, not the controlled dimensional tear he'd arrived through but a chaotic rift that pulsed with unstable energy. "We'll meet again when you've fully bonded with your spirits, boy. My master will be most interested in how that proceeds." Before anyone could stop him, Mordo backed into the portal, which sealed instantly behind him. The moment he vanished, the dimensional distortion began to collapse, reality reasserting itself piece by piece until they stood once again in the streets of Konoha. Naruto fell to his knees, the chains disappearing as his energy reserves depleted. The combined strain of channeling both Zarathos and Kurama simultaneously had pushed his body to its limits. Ileana approached, her soulsword transforming back into a normal arm as she knelt beside him. "You did well for your first true manifestation," she said quietly. "Most hosts don't maintain that much control." "Who was that?" Tsunade demanded, helping Naruto to his feet. "And who is this, master?" he mentioned. Quote, Ileana's expression darkened. "Baron Mordo is a sorcerer from my dimension, powerful, dangerous, and completely amoral. He serves an entity called Dormammu, ruler of the dark dimension and one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse. And he wants Naruto because of what's inside him," Kakashi concluded, joining them. "Yes and no," Ileana corrected. "He wants Zarathos. Certainly, a spirit of vengeance contains immense power. But what truly interests him is the unprecedented merger taking place, Zarathos coexisting with your nine-tailed entity. Such a combination shouldn't be possible. The fact that it is." She trailed off, studying Naruto with renewed intensity. "The fact that it is means what?" Naruto prompted. "It means someone engineered this," she finally stated. The sealing that trapped both entities within you wasn't an accident. Someone deliberately created a vessel capable of housing both a tailed beast and a spirit of vengeance. Silence fell over the group as the implications sank in. Finally, Tsunade broke it with a heavy sigh. Anbu headquarters. Now, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before Mordo or something worse returns. As they made their way through the village, Naruto became acutely aware of how the other shinobi were looking at him, with the same mixture of fear and awe that had followed him throughout childhood. But intensified. Once again, he was the vessel of something they didn't understand, something they feared. They fear what they should, Zarathos commented within his mind. Fear keeps the innocent cautious and the guilty restless. Asterisk. That's not how Konoha works, asterisk Naruto countered. We protect each other. We trust each other. Asterisk. Yet they never trusted you, even before I joined you, Zarathos observed. They feared the fox, isolated you, watched you from the shadows. Asterisk. Naruto had no immediate response to that uncomfortable truth. Instead, he focused on Ileana, who walked slightly ahead of him. You said you rule Limbo, he called out. What exactly is Limbo? She glanced back, those unnaturally blue eyes studying him. A dimension between dimensions. A plaque. E of demons and magic where time flows differently. I was trapped there as a child, learned its ways, eventually took control. And your sword, it hurt those creatures when our jutsu couldn't. The soul's word, she confirmed. Forged from my own soul during my time in Limbo. It can cut through magical constructs, harm spiritual entities, even sever the connection between dimensions temporarily. Tsunade led them into Anbu headquarters through a concealed entrance, taking them deep underground to a chamber Naruto had never seen before, circular, with ceiling arrays inscribed on the walls, floor, and ceiling. This room was designed to contain and study Biju Chakra, she explained, noting Naruto's curious expression. Now it may help us understand what's happening to you. Inside the chamber waited Inoichi Yamanaka and, surprisingly, Hinata Hyuga. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the latter's presence. Hinata's Byakugan has evolved recently, Tsunade explained. She can see chakra pathways we can't, including how spiritual entities interact with the physical body. Hinata stepped forward, and Naruto immediately noticed something different about her eyes, the typical lavender ITE of the Byakugan now contained flecks of silver that seemed to shift and move independently. Naruto-kun, she greeted, her usual shyness tempered by determination. I volunteered when Hokage-sama explained what was happening to you. When she activated her Byakugan, Naruto heard both Zarathos and Kurama stir within him. Her gasp confirmed she saw something unprecedented. The two energies, she whispered. They're braiding together. I've never seen anything like it. The Nine Tails chakra network has always been separate from your own, but this new entity, it's creating a third network that connects them both. Inoichi approached cautiously. With your permission, I'd like to enter your mindscape, Naruto. It might help us understand what's happening. Naruto hesitated. It's not safe in there right now. I'll accompany him, Ileana offered unexpectedly. My experience with dimensional spaces might prove useful, and I've encountered Zarathos before in my world. Tsunade looked skeptical. You just arrived in our dimension, and you expect us to trust you inside Naruto's mind. She fought beside me against those creatures and against Mordo, Naruto pointed out. She seems to know more about Zarathos than any of us. After a moment's consideration, Tsunade nodded reluctantly. Inoichi, proceed, but with extreme caution. At the first sign of danger, withdraw immediately. The Yamanaka clan leader positioned himself behind Naruto while Ileana stood directly in front. I'll use a modified version of our clan technique, Inoichi explained. It will allow both myself and Ileana-san to enter your mindscape simultaneously. You'll remain conscious and in control. Naruto nodded, closing his eyes as Inoichi's hands formed the necessary seals. He felt the familiar sensation of someone else's consciousness brushing against his own, followed by a strange ripple as Ileana's mind joined the connection. In his mindscape, the temple cavern complex had expanded further, becoming more elaborate. Golden chains crisscrossed the space, connecting to both Kurama and Zarathos, who had taken his skeletal fire form. Between them stood Naruto's mental projection of himself. Inoichi materialized first, his eyes widening at the sight of the two powerful entities. Extraordinary, he breathed. The seal has adapted to contain both beings. Ileana appeared next, her form in the mindscape slightly different, her left arm permanently in its soulsward configuration, armor covering more of her body. Zarathos, she acknowledged, nodding toward the fiery skeleton. You've changed in this realm. Limbo Queen, Zarathos responded, his voice reverberating through the mindscape. You've followed me across dimensions. Your brother's influence grows stronger. My brother is dead, Ileana stated flatly. Whatever wears his appearance now is not Peter. Kurama growled, tails lashing against their constraints. More dimensional travelers. First you, spirit, now these humans. My vessel is not a doorway between worlds. Yet that is precisely what he has become, Zarathos countered. What he was always meant to be. Naruto stepped forward. What do you mean, meant to be? You keep hinting that this wasn't an accident. Zarathos's flaming skull seemed to smile, though it had no flesh to form the expression. The seal that binds the fox was modified, Naruto Uzumaki. Modified by someone with knowledge of both our worlds, someone who understood that the fox alone could not prepare you for what comes. What comes? Inoichi asked sharply. What threat requires such measures? The barrier between dimensions weakens, Zarathos replied. Not just between your world and the one Ileana and Mordo come from, but between all worlds. Something ancient stirs in the spaces between. Something that feeds on the destruction of entire realities. Ileana paled visibly, even in the mindscape. The Old Ones. You're talking about the Old Ones. Zarathos inclined his burning skull in acknowledgement. What your dimension calls the Old Ones, what others name the Outer Gods or the Elder Evils. Entities that existed before the current multiverse took shape, waiting in the void for reality to weaken enough for their return. And Naruto is supposed to stop them. Inoichi asked incredulously. One shinobi against cosmic entities. Not alone, Zarathos corrected. The modified seal was only the beginning. Others are being prepared across dimensions, vessels housing different combinations of power, all designed to stand together when the barrier finally falls. Naruto struggled to process the implications. Who did this? Who modified the seal? For the first time, uncertainty seemed to touch Zarathos's burning form. That remains unclear. The knowledge was fragmented when I was drawn through the dimensional tier. I know only that it was someone with knowledge of both sealing arts and dimensional sorcery. Ileana stepped closer to Kurama, studying the massive fox with professional interest. In my world, we have no equivalent to these tailed beasts. Their energy signature is unique. Neither demonic nor divine, yet with elements of both. We existed before your concepts of demons and gods, Kurama stated disdainfully. We are the chakra of the 10 tails given consciousness and form. The 10 tails, Ileana repeated thoughtfully. A primordial entity split into 9 parts. Interesting. In some ways, that mirrors what happened with the elder evils in my dimension, ancient powers fragmented to prevent their full manifestation. Inoichi turned to Naruto. We should report this to the Hokage immediately. If what Zarathos says is true, this goes far beyond hidden village politics. Naruto nodded, but before they could withdraw from the mindscape, a tremor ran through the entire structure. Chains rattled, stone cracked, and pools of lava bubbled up from previously solid floor. What's happening? Naruto demanded, struggling to maintain his footing as the tremors intensified. Zarathos and Kurama both turned toward the same point in the mindscape, a wall that hadn't been there before, one that seemed to shimmer and pulse with an otherworldly light. Mordo, Ileana hissed, her soulsword glowing brighter. He's attempting to breach your mind directly. The wall bulged inward, green energy crackling around its edges. Inoichi immediately moved to place himself between Naruto and the intrusion, hands flashing through seals. Get out of here, Naruto ordered him. Tell Tsunade what's happening. I can't leave you, Inoichi began. Go, Naruto insisted. If Mordo takes control of my mind with both Zarathos and Kurama inside, no one will be able to stop me. The village needs to be warned. After a moment's hesitation, Inoichi nodded and disappeared from the mindscape. Naruto turned to Ileana. You should go too. She shook her head, soulsword raised. I know how to fight Mordo's sorcery. You don't. Not yet. The wall continued to bulge, cracks appearing across its surface as green light poured through. Naruto could feel the pressure building, not just against his mindscape but against the very foundations of his being. "Let us fight together, Vessel," Zarathos proposed, chains of golden fire extending toward Naruto. "Not possession. Partnership. Asterisk. The spirit is right," asterisk Kurama added reluctantly. "Divided. We cannot repel this invasion." Asterisk. Naruto hesitated only briefly before grasping both the fiery chains from Zarathos and a strand of red chakra from Kurama. The moment he made contact with both simultaneously, energy surged through his mindscape projection. His appearance transformed, not into the skeletal Ghost Rider form or the fox cloak, but something new. Golden red armor materialized across his body, styled like traditional shinobi gear but made of what appeared to be solidified chakra and hellfire. His eyes glowed with dual lights, one iris blue-white like Zarathos's fire, the other red-orange like Kurama's chakra. Chains of the same hybrid energy coiled around his arms and torso, moving like living things. "I see what's happening," Ileana breathed, watching the transformation. "The merger is accelerating. Mordo's attack is forcing adaptation." The wall finally shattered, and Baron Mordo's astral projection stepped through the breach, similar to his physica. L form but wreathed in green energy and symbols that hurt the eyes to look upon directly. "Fascinating," he observed, taking in Naruto's transformed appearance and the two entities behind him. "The process is further along than I realized. My master will be pleased." "Your master isn't getting anything from me," Naruto stated, his voice carrying that dual resonance again. Mordo smiled thinly. "You misunderstand. I'm not here to take you, not yet. This is merely reconnaissance." He made a sweeping gesture, and the green energy surrounding him expanded outward, forming tendrils that attempted to touch both Kurama and Zarathos. The fox roared, red chakra flaring to incinerate the approaching tendrils, while Zarathos's chains lashed out to intercept others. Ileana lunged forward, her Olsword cleaving through the green energy with surprising effectiveness. "Your astral form is vulnerable here, Mordo. One clean strike and your physical body will suffer the consequences." Mordo's smile never wavered as he floated backward, avoiding her attack. "Always so direct, Rasputina. That was never your brother's way." The mention of her brother clearly struck a nerve. Ileana faltered momentarily, and Mordo seized the opportunity to launch a counterattack, a blast of green energy that caught her squarely in the chest, sending her flying backward. Naruto moved with speed that surprised even him, catching her before she could impact the mindscape wall. The moment they touched, something unexpected happened. A surge of power flowed between them, silver light from her soulsword arm urging momentarily with his golden red armor. "The resonance," Mordo observed, genuine surprise in his voice. "You're compatible vessels. How convenient." Before either could respond, Naruto felt something shift in the external world. His physical body was being moved. In the mindscape, the entire structure shuddered again, more violently than before. "They're trying to wake us up," Naruto realized. Tsunade and the others must have noticed something's wrong. Mordo's expression darkened. "This interview is concluded for now. But remember, Naruto Uzumaki, my master sees across dimensions. There is nowhere in the multiverse you can hide from his gaze." With a gesture, the sorcerer's astral form dissolved, the breach in Naruto's mindscape sealing itself as the green energy dissipated. Ileana straightened, her soulsword dimming slightly. "We need to return to our physical forms. Prolonged separation is dangerous, especially after mental combat." Naruto nodded, releasing his connection to both Kurama and Zarathos. The golden red armor faded, his mindscape projection returning to its normal appearance. "What did he mean about us being compatible vessels?" "I don't know," Ileana admitted. "But it can't be good if it pleased him." She fixed Naruto with an intense gaze. "When we return, tell your Hokage everything. Mordo doesn't act alone, and Dormammu's interest in your Earl means danger beyond anything your shinobi have faced." With that final warning, she dissolved from his mindscape, returning to her physical form. Naruto followed suit, consciousness rushing back to his body with jarring suddenness. He opened his eyes to find himself surrounded by concerned faces, Tsunade, Kakashi, Yamato, and Hinata all hovering nearby. Inoichi stood back, looking exhausted, while Ileana was already on her feet, pacing the chamber restlessly. Mordo breached my mind, Naruto reported immediately. He said it was reconnaissance for his master, someone named Dormammu. Tsunade turned to Ileana. You know this Dormammu. What are we dealing with? Ileana stopped pacing, her expression grave. Dormammu is ruler of the Dark Dimension, an entity of nearly godlike power. In my world, only the Sorcerer Supreme stands between him and conquest of our dimension. If he's turned his attention to your world, why would he care about our dimension? Kakashi asked. What could he possibly want here? Zarathos said something about barriers between dimensions weakening, Naruto interjected. About ancient entities waiting to return when those barriers fall. Ileana nodded grimly. The old ones. If Dormammu is working to hasten their return rather than prevent it, the situation is worse than I feared. And I'm supposed to be what? A weapon against these things? Naruto asked, frustration evident in his voice. Not just a weapon, Ileana corrected. A keystone. According to Zarathos, there are others like you across dimensions, vessels housing unique combinations of power. Together, you might stand against what comes. Tsunade sighed heavily. It seems we've been drawn into a conflict far beyond our borders, beyond our dimension itself. She turned to Naruto. How do you feel now? Any lingering effects from Mordo's intrusion? Naruto took stock of himself. The burning sensation that had accompanied Zarathos' awakening had changed, becoming less painful. More like a steady warmth flowing through his veins alongside Kurama's chakra. Different, he finally answered. More integrated, I guess. Like Zarathos and Kurama are working together now instead of fighting each other. Hinata stepped forward, Byakugan active. The energy patterns have stabilized, she confirmed. The third network connecting them has strengthened significantly. Mordo's attack accelerated the process, Ileana explained. Adaptation under stress. Your body and mind are adjusting more quickly to house both entities because they needed to work together to repel him. Which means we can expect more attacks, Kakashi concluded, forcing Naruto to adapt faster. Tsunade turned to her Anbu guards. I want a full security detail on Naruto at all times. If these dimensional incursions continue, we need to be prepared. That won't be necessary, Naruto stated, rising to his feet with newfound steadiness. I can sense them now, the tears in reality. Both Zarathos and Kurama can feel when the barriers between dimensions weaken. Even so, Tsunade insisted, until we understand exactly what we're dealing with, precautions are necessary. Ileana approached Naruto, studying him with professional interest. You need training, not just in controlling your new abilities but in understanding the dimensional forces at work. I can help with that. Why would you? Naruto asked directly. You barely know me, and you said yourself you came here tracking Zarathos. Because Mordo's interest in you means Dormammu has plans for both our dimensions, she answered. And because what happened in your mindscape when we touched that resonance, it suggests our paths are linked somehow. Before the conversation could continue, an Anbu operative appeared at the chamber entrance. Hokage-sama, we've received reports of another disturbance at the village gates. Not creatures this time. A woman, demanding to speak with the vessel of twin flames. Naruto and Ileana exchanged glances. Satana, they said simultaneously. You know her? Tsunade asked Ileana. Satana Hellstrom, half-demon sorceress from my dimension, Ileana confirmed. Daughter of a demon lord. Powerful in her own right. If she's found her way here too, the dimensional barriers really are weakening, Naruto concluded. Just like Zarathos said. Tsunade nodded to the Anbu. Bring her here, with appropriate precautions. As the operative disappeared to carry out the order, Naruto closed his eyes briefly, dropping into his mindscape. Both Kurama and Zarathos were quieter now, the chaotic energy of their initial forced cohabitation settling into something more stable. This is just the beginning, isn't it? He asked them both. Zarathos' burning skull nodded solemnly. The first pieces move into position. The board takes shape. The game for reality itself begins. Kurama growled in agreement. War comes, Kit, not between nations or villages, but between dimensions. And we stand at the center of it all. Naruto opened his eyes, meeting Ileana's knowing gaze. Then we'd better start preparing, he said simply. Outside the Anbu headquarters, unknown to those within, a figure watched from the shadows, neither shinobi nor dimensional traveler, but something else entirely. It wore the appearance of a man with silver hair and circular glasses, though this was merely convenient camouflage. Fascinating, Kabuto Yakushi whispered, though the voice wasn't entirely his own. Lord Orochimaru's research barely scratched the surface of what's possible. Dimensional travel, entities beyond our comprehension, and Naruto Uzumaki at the center of it all. He melted back into the shadows, already formulating his report. The game for reality had indeed begun, with players from across the multiverse moving into position. And not all of them were interested in saving it. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Chains of Judgment. Dawn painted Konoha in muted amber. The village eerily quiet after the previous night's incursion. Reconstruction teams already swarmed damaged areas, efficiently clearing debris with earth jutsu and raising new support beams through wood release. Such was the resilience of a shinobi village, catastrophe reduced to a logistical problem by morning light. Naruto stood alone atop the Hokage monument, watching reconstruction efforts with uncharacteristic stillness. The hyperactive boy who once painted graffiti across these stone faces had vanished, replaced by someone who moved with deliberate purpose, who carried himself with the unconscious dignity of one housing ancient powers. They rebuild quickly, observed a voice behind him, the accent still foreign to his ears. He didn't turn. Ileana, you move silently for someone wearing armor. The dimensional sorceress stepped beside him, platinum hair catching the sunrise. Unlike yesterday, she'd adjusted her appearance. Her armor now incorporated elements of shinobi design, though the mystical sigils remained. I've adapted to your world's gravity. It's lighter than mine. Is that why you seem to float when you walk? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. A slight smile touched her lips. Perception. In limbo, I learned to move between planes while walking. Old habits. Below them, civilians emerged from emergency shelters, returning to damaged homes and businesses. With that peculiar mix of resignation and determination that characterized Konoha's population. They'd survived the Nine Tails attack, survived the Chunin exam invasion, survived Pain's devastation. Hado demons from another dimension were simply the latest entry in a growing list of catastrophes. Zarathos is quiet this morning, Naruto noted, absently touching his chest where the burning sensation had settled into a constant, tolerable warmth. Conserving strength, Ileana suggested. The first manifestation drains even the most powerful entities. Kurama, sleeping, or pretending to. Naruto finally turned to face her. You never really explained why you came looking for Zarathos. Just that you detected a dimensional disturbance. Ileana's expression hardened, her unnaturally blue eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting another attack. In my world, spirits of vengeance maintain certain cosmic balances. When one disappeared, was pulled from our dimension, consequences followed. Demons grew bolder, supernatural boundaries weakened, and you tracked him here. Naruto studied her with newfound intensity. But that's not the whole story, is it? Before she could answer, a silver disk of energy materialized beneath their feet, a teleportation circle inscribed with symbols matching those on Ileana's armor. Hokage Tower, she explained as the circle expanded. Your Hokage sent me to fetch you. Our guest has arrived. The world blurred momentarily, reality shifting around them rather than them moving through it. When clarity returned, they stood in Tsunade's office, startling the Anbu guards who instinctively reached for weapons. A courtesy warning next time, Tsunade growled from behind her desk, knuckles white against the wood. Beside her stood Kakashi and Shizune, both looking equally tense. We have protocols for entering the Hokage's office. Apologies, Ileana replied without sounding particularly apologetic. Time efficiency seemed paramount. Naruto's attention immediately focused on the office's final occupant, a woman lounging against the far wall with casual disregard for the tension permeating the room. At first glance, she appeared to be in her mid-20s. With cascading crimson hair that seemed to move slightly even without breeze. Her attire was provocative by any standard, a red leather bodysuit that left little to the imagination, adorned with strange symbols that, unlike Ileana's geometric sigils, resembled ancient calligraphy. But it was her eyes that commanded attention, completely black except for red irises that seemed to glow from within. reminiscent of Baron Mordo's unnatural gaze. Satana Hellstrom, Ileana stated flatly. Daughter of Satan in our dimension. Self-styled succubus, hunter of souls. The woman pushed herself off the wall with predatory grace, her movements liquid and hypnotic. Ileana Rasputina, queen of limbo, pretender to power. Her voice carried a strange harmonic, as if multiple people spoke in perfect unison. When she smiled, her canines appeared slightly elongated. How delightful to find you in this quaint realm. Her attention shifted to Naruto, those red and black eyes widening with genuine interest. And this is the vessel. How unusual. She approached with a smooth gait that seemed to deliberately emphasize her curves. Two flames burning in one form, neither consuming the other. May I? She extended a hand toward Naruto's chest. No, you may not, Tsunade interjected sharply. You'll maintain appropriate distance from my shinobi. Satana's smile widened, revealing more teeth than should fit in a human mouth. Your shinobi? How possessive, Lady Hokage. But I'm afraid Naruto Uzumaki no longer belongs solely to your jurisdiction. Why are you here, Satana? Ileana demanded, stepping partially between her and Naruto. The same reason you are, little queen. Satana turned, prowling the perimeter of the office like a caged predator. Reality fractures. Dimensions bleed into one another. The walls between worlds grow thin. She paused, tracing a symbol in the air that briefly glowed red before fading. But unlike you, I know why. Naruto felt both Zarathos and Kurama stir within him. Their attention suddenly focused. Tell us, he said simply. Satana's predatory movement ceased as she fixed him with those unsettling eyes. The old ones stir in their prison beyond dimensions. Dormammu seeks to curry favor with them, offering up worlds as tribute. But he requires keys. Her gaze intensified. Vessels of power combining forces that should not coexist. Like you, Naruto Uzumaki. You're saying I'm being hunted because I contain both Kurama and Zarathos, Naruto concluded. Not just hunted, cultivated. Satana resumed her prowling. Your particular combination was engineered. Vessel, someone with knowledge of both our worlds interfered with your sealing 16 years ago. Tsunade slammed a hand down on her desk, the wood cracking under the impact. Impossible. The fourth Hokage performed that sealing. No outsider could have interfered. Unless, Kakashi interjected quietly, the fourth himself had contact with someone from their dimension. A heavy silence fell over the room as they considered the implications. Finally, Naruto broke it. It doesn't matter who did it or why. What matters is what we do now. He turned to Satana. You said Dormammu needs keys. How many? 7, she answered promptly. 7 vessels, each housing a unique combination of powers that should not coexist. Together, they can either RCE the barriers between dimensions or shatter them completely. And you're here to what? Help us? Stop us? Ileana asked skeptically. Satana's laughter carried that same strange harmonic quality. Self-preservation, darling Ileana. If the barriers fall and the old ones return, even my father's realm will be consumed. Hell itself fears what waits beyond. Tsunade exchanged glances with Kaka's. High before addressing both dimensional visitors. You understand my position. 2 powerful beings from another dimension arrive within days of each other, both claiming to be here to help with a crisis we have no way of verifying. Both taking a special interest in one of my most valuable shinobi. Your skepticism is warranted, Satana acknowledged with surprising sincerity. But soon unnecessary. The incursions will continue, increasing in frequency and power. Baron Mordo was merely the first scout. Others will follow. As if summoned by her words, the windows of the Hokage Tower darkened suddenly. Shadows deepening unnaturally across the village. Outside, civilians stopped and pointed skyward, where a strange aurora had appeared despite the morning hour. Ribbons of green, purple, and call. Ores that had no name in any human language. Right on schedule, Satana murmured, moving to the window. The dimensional bleeding accelerates. Naruto joined her, peering up at the anomaly. Through his enhanced senses, he could perceive what others couldn't. Fracture lines in reality itself, spreading across the sky like cracks in glass. What is that? The veil thins, she explained, voice suddenly bereft of its mocking tone. The barrier between dimensions becomes visible as it weakens. Tsunade barked orders to the Anbu, mobilizing response teams, then turned back to the group. I'm declaring a village-wide state of emergency. Naruto, I need to know exactly what you're capable of with these new enhancements. I don't know myself, he admitted. Yesterday was the first time I consciously channeled Zarathos' power. Ileana stepped forward. He needs training. Not just in controlling Zarathos' abilities, but in understanding how they interact with his existing powers. And you're volunteering? Tsunade asked skeptically. Both of us, Satana interjected, moving with that liquid grace to stand beside Ileana. The Queen of Limbo understands dimensional boundaries. You understand hellfire and soul manipulation, Zarathos' domain. Naruto observed the subtle shift in dynamics, Ileana and Satana, apparently rivals in their home dimension, proposing to work together. His threat must be serious if it's making you two cooperate. You have no idea, Vessel, Satana purred, though the predatory playfulness couldn't quite mask the genuine concern beneath. The end of all realities tends to put petty rivalries in perspective. Tsunade sighed heavily. Fine, you have 3 days to train him, assess his capabilities, and report back. Kakashi will supervise. Any sign of treachery, her eyes hardened to amber flints, and I'll show you exactly why they call me the legendary sucker. Satana's lips quirked. Curious nickname for one so formidable. It's not because I lose fights. Tsunade replied with a dangerous smile. As they prepared to depart, the door to the Hokage's office opened, revealing Hinata. Her Byakugan was active, those silver flecks in her lavender eyes more pronounced than before. Hokage-sama, I've completed the village scan you requested, she reported formally. The dimensional disturbances are concentrated in 7 locations, Foreman. GA perfect heptagram with the Hokage monument at its center. Her gaze shifted to Naruto, and something in her expression changed, not the shy admiration of their academy days, but a deeper recognition. Naruto-kun, your energy signature has stabilized further. The third network is now fully formed. Satana's attention snapped to Hinata, those red and black eyes narrowing with sudden interest. Why? Oh, you can see dimensional energies with those eyes. Fascinating. A bloodline ability unique to this world. The Byakugan allows us to see chakra pathways, Hinata explained, her tone professional despite the unnerving scrutiny. Mine has evolved recently. I can perceive energy patterns others can't. Another modification, Ileana observed quietly. Someone has been very busy preparing this world. Tsunade made a decisive gesture. Hinata, you'll join the training assessment. Your eyes may provide insights none of us can. Hinata bowed slightly. As you wish, Hokage-sama. They departed the tower moments later. Ileana creating another teleportation disc that transported them instantly to Training Ground 44, the Forest of Death. The dense canopy provided natural concealment from the increasingly unsettled skies, though the abnormal aurora remained visible through gaps in the foliage. Pleasant locale, Satana commented, surveying the massive trees and vegetation with approval. Primal, raw, the boundary between worlds is naturally thinner in such places. Kakashi maintained a careful distance from both dimensional visitors. This training ground is restricted for good reason. The wildlife is unfriendly. As if to emphasize his point, a massive centipede the size of a small house emerged briefly from the underbrush before disappearing back into the shadows. Cozy, Ileana remarked dryly. Naruto moved to the center of a clearing, feeling both Zarathos and Kurama stirring within him. So how do we do this? I've spent years learning to control Kurama's chakra, but Zarathos is completely different. The principles aren't entirely dissimilar, Satana explained, circling him with analytical eyes. Both entities represent concentrated energy with consciousness. The difference lies in the nature of that energy. She stopped directly before him. Biju chakra is life force, wild, primal, but essentially natural to this world. Hellfire is judgment made manifest, supernatural, conceptual, drawn from between dimensions. Close your eyes, Ileana instructed. Enter your mindscape. We need to establish direct communication with both entities simultaneously. Naruto complied, dropping effortlessly into the mental space that housed his 2 tenants. The temple cavern complex had evolved further overnight, no longer chaotic and unstable but deliberately structured. Golden chains still crisscrossed the space, but now they formed specific patterns, symbols that somehow made sense despite their complexity. Kurama reclined in one section, tails curled around his massive form. Crimson eyes studying Naruto with unusual thoughtfulness. Zarathos occupied another area, his burning skeletal form seated in what appeared to be meditation. "We have visitors," Naruto informed them, sensing Ileana and Satana's consciousnesses at the periphery of his mindscape. "Invite them," Zarathos instructed. "They must see what we have become." With a thought, Naruto expanded his mental barriers, allowing both women limited access. Their forms materialized beside him, Ileana with her soulsword arm fully manifested, Satana with her demonic heritage more pronounced, Maul horns visible beneath her crimson hair. "Impressive architecture," Satana commented, studying the structured mindscape. "Most vessels housing multiple entities exist in constant chaos. You've achieved remarkable integration already." Ileana approached one of the golden chains, careful not to touch it. "These binding patterns, they're not just restraints. They're channels, allowing control D energy transfer between all three consciousnesses. A necessity," Kurama growled. "The hellfire would consume the kit without my intervention. Similarly, my chakra would overwhelm his system without the spirit's stabilizing influence." Symbiosis rather than parasitism, Satana observed. "Unprecedented." Zarathos's burning skull turned toward her. "You understand the implications, daughter of Hellstrom. The vessel was designed for this integration. The seal bears the marks of deliberate modification." "Show me," she demanded. Naruto concentrated, manifesting a representation of his seal in the center of the mindscape. The familiar spiral appeared, but now they could all see what normally remained invisible, layers of additional symbology interwoven with the original design, some recognizable as Fuinjutsu components. Others clearly from another dimensional tradition entirely. Ileana inhaled sharply. Eldritch binding sigils, limbo containment matrices, Kamar Taj dimensional anchors. Her eyes widened. Whoever modified this seal had knowledge of magical traditions spanning multiple dimensions. But the fourth Hokage was a seal master from this world only, Naruto pointed out. How could he incorporate elements from dimensions he'd never visited? Unless, Zarathos interjected, he had assistance. Or influence. A memory surfaced in Naruto's mind, something Jiraiya had once mentioned during their training journey. "Pervy Sage once told me my father experimented with space-time ninjutsu for years before developing the Flying Thunder God technique. He said sometimes dad would disappear for days into his research, emerging with breakthrough concepts that seemed to come from nowhere." Satana's expression turned thoughtful. "Space-time manipulation is the foundation of dimensional travel. It's possible your father accidentally pierced the veil between worlds during his experiments. And encountered someone who guided his research," Ileana concluded. "Somio. Nay, with an agenda spanning multiple dimensions." Kurama growled, tails lashing with agitation. "The masked one who controlled me that night, could he have been this dimensional traveler?" Naruto shook his head. "No, that was Obito Uchiha. Manipulated by Madara. Their plan was about the 10 tails and the infinite Tsukuyomi, nothing to do with other dimensions." "Perhaps," Zarathos suggested, "they were unknowing pawns in a larger game. Their actions created the circumstances necessary for my transit between dimensions." "Speculation gets us nowhere," Ileana stated practically. "We need to focus on training Naruto to control his combined abilities. The barriers continue to weaken while we debate history." They withdrew from the mindscape, returning to consciousness in the forest of death. Naruto opened his eyes to find Hinata observing him intently with her evolved Byakugan. "The energy flow is remarkable," she commented. "When you enter your mindscape, the three networks pulse in perfect synchronization." Kakashi, who had been maintaining a watchful distance, approached. "What's the training plan?" Satana's lips curved in a smile that was equal parts anticipation and predatory intent. "First, we unleash him." "Absolutely not," Kakashi countered immediately. "Controlled, incremental testing would be pointless," Ileana interrupted. "Zarathos responds to threat, to challenge. His powers manifest fully only under pressure." "So what? You're going to attack him?" Kakashi asked incredulously. Satana's smile widened. "Precisely." Without warning, she thrust both hands forward. crimson energy erupting from her palms in a concentrated blast that struck Naruto squarely in the chest. The impact sent him flying backward, crashing through 3 massive trees before embedding him in a 4th. Naruto! Hinata cried out, moving to intercept Satana, only to be restrained by Ileana. Wait! The Limbo Queen commanded. Watch! For a moment, the forest fell silent. Then, a pulse of energy emanated from the shattered tree, not chakra, not killing intent, but something primal that made the very air vibrate. The splintered wood began to smoke, then ignite with golden flames that didn't consume the organic material but clung to it like liquid light. Naruto emerged, but changed. His usual attire had been replaced by an armored version that seemed forged from solid. A 5 chakra and hellfire, orange-red plates over a mesh-like underlay of golden chains. His eyes glowed with dual lights, the right a fierce blue-white, the left a burning orange-red. Around his arms coiled chains of the same hybrid energy, moving with serpentine fluidity. That, he stated in a voice carrying harmonic undertones, was rude. Satana laughed, a sound like breaking glass and flowing honey combined. The vessel objects to my teaching methods. How charming. Her form shimmered, demonic aspects becoming more pronounced, horns extending fully from her forehead, skin taking on a reddish hue, nails lengthening into talons. Show me what you've learned, Naruto Uzumaki. She launched herself at him with supernatural speed, talons trailing crimson fire. Naruto reacted instinctively, one of his golden red chains lashing out to intercept. When Satana dodged with inhuman flexibility, a second chain emerged from the ground beneath her feet, wrapping around her ankle. Dimensional anchoring, Ileana observed with professional interest. He's instinctively combining Zarathos' chains with spatial manipulation. Satana snarled, her captured foot erupting in hellfire that traveled up the chain toward Naruto. Instead of releasing her, he absorbed the flames, his armor glowing brighter as the energy integrated with his own. He's adapting to her attacks, Hinata noted, Byakugan tracking the energy flows. Each offensive she launches strengthens a different aspect of his combined network. Satana broke free with a burst of power that shook the clearing, launching back into the air where crimson wings erupted from her shoulder blades. Not bad, vessel, but hellfire is my birthright. She began weaving complex patterns with her hands, crimson sigils appearing in the air around her. Each completed symbol launched itself at Naruto like a missile, exploding on impact with force that cratered the ground. Naruto crossed his arms before him, chains forming a defensive lattice that absorbed most of the impacts. What penetrated his guard struck armor that dented but quickly reformed. His response was immediate, a sweeping gesture that sent multiple chains surging upward to ensnare the flying demoness. Satana evaded most but found her left wing entangled. Instead of struggling, she grinned ferally and dissolved the wing into pure hellfire that flowed down the chain. When it reached Naruto, he didn't absorb it this time but redirected it, the foreign hellfire circling his form before launching back at its creator with increased intensity. He's learning control, Kakashi murmured, Sharingan tracking the energy exchanges, distinguishing between different types of similar energy and manipulating them independently. Ileana nodded. Zarathos is guiding him, eaching through combat what would take months to explain theoretically. The exchange intensified, Satana abandoning aerial tactics to engage in close quarters combat. Her talons clashed against Naruto's chain-wrapped fists, each impact releasing bursts of competing hellfire, crimson versus gold-orange. They moved with preternatural speed, their forms occasionally blurring beyond human perception. Enough assessment, Ileana declared after several minutes of escalating combat. With fluid grace, she transformed her arm into the soulsword and slashed at the air between them, creating a vertica L line of silver light that expanded into a doorway. Second phase. Before anyone could object, she stepped through the portal. Satana disengaged from Naruto with a knowing smile and followed. After a moment's hesitation, Naruto entered as well, chains trailing behind him. Wait, Kakashi called out, rushing toward the rapidly closing portal. Hinata was faster, diving through the narrowing opening seconds before it sealed completely, leaving Kakashi alone in the clearing. On the other side of the portal, Naruto found himself in a landscape that defied conventional physics. The sky burned with multiple suns of different colors, casting overlapping shadows that moved independently of their sources. The ground beneath his feet appeared solid but rippled like water with each step. In the distance, mountains floated without connection to the land, some inverted, others fragmenting and reforming continuously. "Welcome to Limbo," Ileana announced, her appearance fully transformed. Silver armor covered her completely now, her soulsword gleaming with internal light. A hooded cloak of shifting shadows completed the ensemble, giving her the appearance of a knight from some otherworldly court. Or rather, a controlled section I've created specifically for training. "You kidnapped me to another dimension," Naruto demanded, chains writhing around him with increased agitation. "Temporarily relocated," Satana corrected, her own form now fully demonic. Red skin, extended horns, leathery wings restored and expanded. "Limbo exists outside normal time. We can train for weeks here while mere hours pass in your world. And you didn't think to ask first." Naruto's voice carried dangerous undertones as both Zarathos and Kurama responded to the perceived threat. "Would you have agreed?" Ileana asked practically. Besides, dimensional transit was the next lesson. Experiencing it is more effective than explaining it. A movement behind them drew their attention. Hinata, emerging from the closing portal with a graceful roll that brought her immediately to a defensive stance, Byakugan active. "Hinata," Naruto's anger momentarily forgotten in surprise. "You followed us." Kakashi-sensei was too far behind. She explained, eyes scanning their bizarre surroundings. Someone needed to maintain observation. Satana's expression shifted from annoyance to intrigued respect. The Byakugan carrier has courage. And her eyes. She studied Hinata more carefully. They've adapted to perceive Limbo without adjustment. Interesting. The dimensional shift hasn't disoriented her at all, Ileana noted with professional assessment. Her visual perception transcends conventional boundaries. Hinata moved to stand beside Naruto, her stance protective despite the power differential. "The Hokage ordered supervision of this training. I'm fulfilling that directive." Naruto felt a strange warmth that had nothing to do with hellfire or chakra, Hinata's unwavering loyalty, her growth from the shy girl who once hid behind posts to this confident kunoichi standing beside him in another dimension. "Fine," Ileana conceded. "You may observe, but remain beyond the training perimeter." Limbo responds to emotional states, fear, anger, desire, amplifying and manifesting them. Your presence could complicate the exercises. Hinata nodded once, moving to an elevated position that offered clear sightlines without proximity. As she settled into observation stance, Naruto noticed something unusual. Her chakra network was visible even without his actively trying to sense it, pulsing with a lavender light shot through with silver. "Now," Satana purred, drawing his attention back, "shall we begin the real training?" The landscape around them shifted, responding to Ileana's will. Ground hardened into reflective obsidian, while the sky darkened to twilight illuminated by strange constellations unknown in any human universe. The air grew heavy with potential, like the moment before lightning strikes. "In Limbo, intent shapes reality," Ileana explained, her soulsword tracing a complex pattern in the air that left lingering silver afterimages. "Your combined powers, Zarathos's hellfire, Kurama's chakra, your own human will, can affect dimensional boundaries in ways neither entity could alone." "How is this relevant to defending Konoha?" Naruto asked, practical despite the wonder of his surroundings. "Because the coming threats won't just attack physically," Satana answered, crimson flames dancing between her clawed fingers. "They'll attack the fabric of reality itself. You need to learn to sense dimensional weaknesses, to repair breaches, to prevent incursions before they manifest." With a gesture, she created a small tear in the air, a ragged opening through which glimpses of another realm appeared. A place of shifting shadows and half-formed creatures. "This is a controlled breach. Sense its edges, feel how reality strains against the intrusion." Naruto extended his awareness, guided by Zarathos's experience with dimensional boundaries. The tear felt wrong, like an open wound in living tissue, reality itself struggling to heal the injury. "I can feel it," he confirmed, chains instinctively rising toward the breach. "It's painful somehow, not physically, but reality experiences trauma when forcibly breached," Ileana explained. "What you feel is the multiverse's equivalent of pain. How do I close it?" Naruto asked, chains hovering uncertainly near the tear. "Intent, will, and energy properly applied, Satana instructed. Your chains are perfect tools, extensions of judgment and binding. Command them to seal the breach, to restore proper order. Naruto focused, directing his chains toward the tear's edges. Instinctively, THEY began weaving themselves into the fabric of reality around the breach, pulling the ragged edges together like sutures closing a wound. As the opening narrowed, he could sense resistance, whatever why on the other side didn't want to be sealed away. It's fighting back, he grunted, sweat beading on his forehead despite the armor. Of course it is, Satana replied with casual cruelty. Breaches are often created deliberately by entities seeking entry. Force your will upon it. You are Zarathos' vessel, judgment is your domain. Naruto redoubled his efforts, chains glowing brighter as he channeled more power through them. The tear slowly, reluctantly sealed, reality knitting itself back together under his guidance until only a faint scar remained, visible to his enhanced senses but otherwise undetectable. Well done, Ileana acknowledged, but that was a simple breach, created for demonstration. Real incursions will be larger, more complex, and actively defended by whatever seeks entry. Like this, Satana added with disturbing eagerness. She raised both hands, crimson energy coalescing between them into a pulsing sphere. With a sharp gesture, she hurled it into the air where it exploded outward. Creating not one breach but dozens, a constellation of tears revealing glimpses of multiple hellish dimensions. From these openings emerged creatures, some vaguely humanoid with too many limbs or eyes. Others completely alien in form, moving in ways that seemed to violate physical laws. They screeched, howled, chittered, all converging on Naruto with single-minded purpose. What the hell? He shouted, chains lashing out defensively. You're attacking me with demons. Application under pressure, Ileana stated calmly, observing from a distance. Theory without practice is worthless. The first wave of creatures reached him, claws and tentacles and appendages that defied classification all striking simultaneously. Naruto's chains intercepted most, but some penetrated his defense, scoring hits against his armor that left smoking furrows. Pain lanced through him, not just physical but spiritual. These beings attacked on multiple levels simultaneously. Inside his mindscape, both Zarathos and Kurama roared in protest. Enough restraint, Zarathos demanded. Let us fight as one. For once, I agree with the spirit, Kurama growled. Full integration. Now, Naruto made his decision instantly, allowing both entities greater access to his consciousness than ever before. The change was immediate and dramatic, his armor expanding to cover him completely, transforming into a synthesis of traditional shinobi armor and supernatural protection. His head remained uncovered, but his features shifted, eyes blazing with dual-colored fire, facial markings deepening ND extending in patterns that resembled both fox whiskers and judgment sigils. The chains multiplied, dozens erupting from his body and the ground around him, each moving with independent intelligence. To intercept demons and seal breaches simultaneously. Where they struck demonic flesh, the creatures didn't simply die but unraveled, their otherworldly essence consumed by judgment fire. Remarkable integration, Satana observed, hovering above the battlefield on restored wings. 3 consciousnesses operating in perfect harmony, each enhancing the others. From her observation point, Hinata tracked the energy flows with wide-eyed fascination. It's beautiful, she whispered, though no one was close enough to hear. Through her evolved Byakugan, she could see what others couldn't, how Naruto's human chakra, Kurama's Biju energy, and Zarathos' hellfire wove together in patterns of mathematical perfection, creating something entirely new. Naruto moved through the demonic horde with preternatural grace, each movement flowing into the next with liquid efficiency. Chains struck with surgical precision, targeting vulnerable points in both demonic anatomy and dimensional breaches. Where direct attacks proved insufficient, he adapted instantly, some chains forming shields, others becoming conduits that redirected demonic energy back against its sources. He's innovating, Ileana noted with professional approval, creating techniques neither Zarathos nor traditional shinobi would conceive independently. As the battle progressed, Naruto's control refined further. Chains began sealing breaches preemptively, closing tiers before more demons could emerge. Those already in limbo found themselves systematically isolated, contained, and neutralized with increasing efficiency. Within minutes, the immediate threat had been eliminated, all breaches sealed. Naruto stood in the center of the obsidian plane, chains slowly retracting, armor gradually receding until only his eyes retained their supernatural glow. Acceptable performance, Satana declared, descending to ground level. You adapt quickly for a novice. Was this really necessary? Naruto demanded, anger evident despite his exhaustion. You endangered Hinata with this stunt. The Hyuga was never in danger, Ileana countered, joining them. This section of limbo is under my complete control. The demons couldn't have reached her observation post. Besides, Satana added with a predatory smile, she handled herself admirably when one tried. Naruto's head snapped toward Hinata's position, only to see he are calmly standing over the dissolving remains of a demon, her hands still glowing with the distinctive energy of the gentle fist, though now that energy carried silver highlights. Her fighting style has evolved along with her eyes, Ileana observed. Chakra strikes that affect spiritual entities, another unexpected adaptation. Hinata made her way down to join them, moving with the quiet confidence that had gradually replaced her childhood shyness. The creature's energy pathways were similar to chakra networks, just operating on a different frequency. I simply adjusted my technique accordingly. Naruto studied her with newfound appreciation. This was not the Hinata who had once struggled for recognition within her clan. This was a kunoichi who had followed him into another dimension. Without hesitation and adapted to fighting demons as if it were a standard mission parameter. That's 3, Satana murmured cryptically. 3 what? Naruto asked. Vessels with unique adaptations, she elaborated. You, housing 2 entities that should destroy each other. Ileana, bridging limbo and physical reality. And now the Hyuga, whose visual prowess has evolved to perceive dimensional energies. Ileana's expression hardened. You think she's one of the 7 keys. The evidence suggests it, Satana confirmed. Her abilities are developing too rapidly, too specifically, to be coincidental. Naruto moved protectively closer to Hinata. You're saying someone engineered Hinata's abilities too? Modified her Byakugan the way they modified my seal? Perhaps not as directly, Satana mused. Studying Hinata with uncomfortable intensity. More likely, they selected bloodlines with potential for specific adaptations, then arranged circumstances to trigger those changes. My near-death experience during Pain's invasion, Hinata realized, eyes widening. That's when my Byakugan began to change. I could suddenly see more. A catalyst event, Ileana nodded. Dimension. Al stress often manifests during moments of extreme trauma or spiritual liminality. This is too coordinated to be coincidence, Naruto concluded, pieces falling into place. Zarathos arriving in our world, Hinata's Byakugan evolving. The dimensional barriers weakening now when we're both the right age to use these abilities. Indeed, Satana agreed. Someone is orchestrating events across multiple dimensions, positioning pieces for some greater purpose. But who? Hinata asked. And why? Before anyone could answer, the landscape around them shuddered violently. The multiple suns overhead flickered like dying light bulbs, while the ground beneath their feet rippled more aggressively. We're being located, Ileana stated flatly, immediately transforming fully into her limbo ruler. Spect. Armor completing itself with a horned helmet that left only her eyes visible. Someone is tracking our dimensional signature. Mordo. Naruto suggested, chains automatically emerging in response to the potential threat. No, Satana hissed, her own demonic features becoming more pronounced as she sensed the intrusion. Something worse. We need to leave, now. Ileana thrust her soulsword into the ground. Silver energy radiating outward in a circular pattern. Stepping disc forming. Prepare for transit. The disruption intensified, reality itself seeming to groan under some impossible pressure. In the distance, mountains crumbled as the floating islands began plummeting to the ground, physics reasserting itself with catastrophic results. Someone's overriding your control of limbo, Naruto observed, watching the destruction spread toward them. Impossible, Ileana growled through her helmet. I am limbo's sovereign. Not anymore, little queen, came a voice that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The air before them shimmered, coalescing into a humanoid figure easily 8 feet tall, composed entirely of metallic organic material that rippled and flowed like liquid mercury. Its face was featureless except for 3 vertical slits where eyes should be, glowing with internal crimson light. Magus, Satana snarled, wings flaring with hellfire. How did you find this pocket dimension? The figure's liquid metal face shifted, approximating a smile without lips or proper features. I merely followed the breadcrumbs you so helpfully left across dimensions, daughter of Satan. Tracking 3 vessels in one location was efficient. Ileana's stepping disc finally completed, the portal beginning to open beneath their feet. Transit initiating, she announced. 5 seconds to displacement. Magus made a dismissive gesture, and the portal wavered, silver energy fluctuating erratically. Your dimensional sorcery is impressive, Rasputina, but ultimately primitive. I have existed between realities since before your species evolved consciousness. Naruto stepped forward, chains lashing out to wrap around the entity's liquid metal form. Where they made contact, the material hissed and steamed, judgment fire attempting to consume the unnatural substance. Interesting, Magus observed, studying the chains with scientific detachment despite their obviously painful effect. Zarathos's essence has been modified by the Fox entity. The combinatorial possibilities are stimulating. With casual strength, he grabbed one chain and pulled. The motion so swift and powerful that Naruto was yanked off his feet, flying toward the metallic being. Before he could impact, Hinata intercepted, her gentle fist strike aimed at the creature's midsection. Her chakra-enhanced palm connected with the liquid metal surface, sending ripples across the entity's form. And the Byakugan vessel, Magus continued, apparently unaffected by the strike. Your visual prowess has indeed evolved impressively. You can see me as I truly am, can't you, child? Hinata's eyes widened in shock as she leapt back to a defensive position. You're not a single entity. She gasped. You're thousands, millions, of consciousnesses compressed into one form. Perceptive, Magus acknowledged. A technological singularity from a dimension where organic and mechanical life merged. I am many, speaking as one. The stepping disc beneath them pulsed with renewed energy as Ileana poured more power into the transportation spell. 3 seconds, she gritted through clenched teeth. Satana launched herself at Magus, talons and wings wreathed in hellfire. We just need to distract him long enough to. Her attack never landed. With impossible speed, Magus's arm extended, elongating like liquid metal to grab her throat mid-flight. Your father sends his regards, little succubus. He remains displeased with your recent activities. Naruto's chains multiplied, dozens lashing out simultaneously to bind the entity's limbs, torso, even wrapping around what approximated its head. Let her go. Magus's featureless face turned toward him. Your protective instinct is admirable but premature, Naruto Uzumaki. I am not here to harm any of you. Quite the contrary, I've come to warn you. 1 second to transit, Ileana announced, the portal now stable and pulsing beneath them. Dormammu is merely a pawn, Magus stated rapidly, apparently aware their time was limited. The old ones have agents across all dimensions. Trust no one who. The stepping disc activated, reality dissolving around them in a flash of silver light. The last thing Naruto saw was Magus releasing Satana, making no move to prevent their escape, those 3 vertical eye slits watching with what almost seemed like approval. Transit through dimensions felt like being simultaneously compressed and expanded, existence becoming conceptual rather than physical. For a breathless moment before reasserting itself with jarring solidity, they materialized in the forest of death exactly where they had departed, though the quality of light suggested several hours had passed. Kakashi was still there, along with an Anbu squad and Tsunade herself, all in defensive positions around a hastily established perimeter. When the group appeared, weapons were immediately trained on them before recognition set in. Stand down, Tsunade ordered, approaching with barely contained fury. Where the hell have you been? It's been 6 hours. Another dimension, Naruto answered matter-of-factly. Chains still partially manifested around him. Time flows differently there. You were gone for weeks from your perspective, weren't you? Kakashi deduced, noting the subtle changes in their appearances and stances. 3 weeks of intensive training, Ileana confirmed, her armor receding to its more minimal configuration. Interrupted at the end by an unexpected visitor. Magus, Satana supplied, her own demonic features gradually fading back to human appearance, though her eyes remained those unsettling red in black orbs. A technological hive-mind entity from He dimension designated Earth 6116 in our classification system. And he claimed to be warning us, Hinata added, her Byakugan deactivating as she rejoined the Konoha group. Said Dormammu was just a pawn of the old ones. Tsunade's expression shifted from anger to strategic calculation. I've ordered a full council meeting for tomorrow morning. Until then, all 4 of you are confined to a secure location for debriefing. She fixed Ileana and Satana with a stern glare. No more unauthorized dimensional field trips. Agreed, Ileana replied, surprisingly compliant. The transit attracted attention we weren't prepared for. Remaining in this dimension is strategically sound for now. As they prepared to return to the village, Naruto noticed something concerning the strange aurora that had appeared that morning had intensified, now visible even through the dense canopy of the Forest of Death. The colors had shifted too, darker hues predominating, with occasional patterns that resembled writing in some inhuman language. The veil continues to thin, Satana observed, following his gaze. We have less time than I initially calculated. How long? Naruto asked quietly. At the current rate of degradation. She studied the aurora with professional assessment. 2 months before the first major breach. Perhaps 3 before complete barrier failure. 3 months until the end of all reality. Ileana summarized grimly. Unless we locate the other vessels and determine who's orchestrating this convergence. Then we'd better get started, Naruto stated with characteristic determination. As they walked back toward the village, his chains gradually retracted, armor fading until he appeared normal again, except for his eyes, which retained faint traces of their dual-colored glow. Inside his mindscape, Zarathos and Kurama had settled into an uneasy alliance, their energies no longer fighting each other but coordinating, preparing. Both sensed the coming storm, both understood the stakes extended beyond their traditional concerns. The vessel grows stronger, Zarathos observed. Our integration proceeds more rapidly than anticipated. He's always exceeded expectations, Kurama replied with grudging pride. But will it be enough against entities that threaten entire dimensions? Alone. No, Zarathos acknowledged. But he is not alone. The Hyuga's evolution progresses remarkably. The dimensional sorceresses bring valuable knowledge. And others will emerge as the barriers weaken further. You mean the other vessels, this Satana mentioned, Kurama deduced. The 7 keys. Indeed. Though whether they will stand as saviors or destroyers remains to be seen. The village came into view, still peaceful in the fading afternoon light despite the unnatural aurora above. Citizens went about their business, merchants closed shops for the day, shinobi patrolled with professional vigilance, all unaware that reality itself grew increasingly fragile around them. As they passed through the gates, Naruto felt a strange sensation. A pulling at the edges of his awareness, like someone trying to get his attention from just beyond perception. He stopped, scanning the area with senses enhanced by both his tenets. What is it? Hinata asked, her own Byakugan activating instinctively. I'm not sure, he admitted. It feels like someone's watching us. Not from here, but from somewhere adjacent. Satana and Ileana exchanged concerned glances. Dimensional scrying, Satana suggested. Someone observing from another reality without physically crossing over. Can you tell who? Tsunade demanded. Naruto concentrated, extending his awareness further with Zarathos's guidance. The sensation clarified slightly, not malevolent like Mordo's presence had been. Nor clinically detached like Magus, but something familiar somehow. It feels like, he struggled to articulate the impression. Like family. Before anyone could question this strange assessment, a new development demanded their attention. Near the Hokage monument, a small point of light appeared, hovering in midair. Unlike the chaotic rifts from previous incursions, this manifestation was perfectly circular. Its edges precise and controlled. Another breach? Kakashi asked, uncovering his Sharingan to observe the phenomenon. No, Ileana answered, studying it with professional interest. A dimensional window. Observation only, not transit. Someone is looking into your world very deliberately. The point expanded slightly, becoming a disk approximately 3 feet in diameter. Within its circumference, they could see what appeared to be a laboratory of some kind. advanced equipment unlike anything in the shinobi world, glowing screens displaying data in unfamiliar script. Standing before these screens was a woman with long red hair, dressed in what appeared to be a white laboratory coat over a black bodysuit adorned with spiral patterns that bore striking similarity to Uzumaki clan symbols. Her back was to the window, her attention focused on the equipment before her. "No way," Naruto whispered, an impossible hope rising within him. "It can't be." The woman stiffened suddenly, apparently sensing the observation. She turned, revealing a face that made Tsunade gasp in shock and Kakashi freeze in disbelief. Her features were unmistakable to a NY1 who had known Kushina Uzumaki, the same shaped eyes, the same facial structure. But subtle differences existed too. Her eyes glowed with internal light that shifted between violet and gold, and R Kings adorned her forehead in patterns that resembled Fuinjutsu script rendered in living light. "She's found us," the woman stated, her voice carrying clearly through the dimensional window despite the apparent distance. Sooner than expected, but within acceptable parameters. She approached the window from her side, studying them with scientific detachment that gradually softened into someth. More personal as her gaze settled on Naruto. "Hello, son," she said simply. "The integration proceeds well, I see. Zarathos and Kurama have reached preliminary harmony." "Mom," Naruto managed, Haynes unconsciously manifesting around him in response to his emotional turmoil. "How? You died." During the ceiling, a sad smile touched her features. "That's partially correct. What you see is Kushina remnant, a fragment of consciousness preserved during the modified sealing procedure and transferred to a dimensional nexus point." She gestured to the laboratory around her. "I've spent 16 years preparing for what comes. You're the one who modified the seal," Tsunade realized, stepping forward. "You're the one who engineered all of this." "One of several architects," the Kushina remnant corrected. "Working across dimensions to prepare for the return of the old ones." "Why?" Naruto demanded, a lifetime of abandonment issues surfacing despite the extraordinary circumstances. "Why arrange all this? Why not just stay?" The remnant's expression filled with genuine regret. "The preparations required coordination from outside your dimension, Naruto. The modifications to the seal, the catalyst events for the Hyuga's evolution, the guidance of the Limbo Queen and the Hellstrom daughter to your world, all required someone operating beyond conventional dimensional constraints." She placed a hand against the dimensional window, the barrier rippling like water at her touch. "Time grows short. The old one's servants move more aggressively than anticipated. You must find other vessels quickly, particularly the Lightning Emperor and the Shadow Binder." "More cryptic instructions," Satana observed dryly. "How typical of interdimensional manipulators." The Kushina Manant's eyes flashed with momentary irritation. "Satana Hellstrom, your father's influence has made you reflexively cynical, but it serves no one now." Her attention returned to Naruto. "The next incursion will target Kumogakure. The Two Tails Jinchuriki must be secured before Dormammu's agents reach her." "Yugito Nii," Naruto realized. "She's another vessel." "Yes, her Biju has already begun. Resonating with the second entity it houses, a fragment of Sidorak's power that crossed dimensions during a previous weakening of the barriers." The window began to fluctuate, its edges becoming less stable. "Our connection weakens," the remnant observed. "I cannot maintain this window long without attracting unwanted attention." "Wait," Naruto called out, stepping closer to the dimensional boundary. "How do I find you? How do I know this isn't some trick?" The remnant smiled sadly. "Ask Zarathos about the Temple of Resurrection. He knows my true location." Her expression grew more serious. "And as for proof of my identity," she made a complex hand sign that Tsunade immediately recognized. "That's the secret Uzumaki clan seal," the Hokage confirmed. "Known only to blood members and their most trusted confidants. Be careful who you trust, Naruto," the remnant warned as the window began to shrink. "Not all who offer help seek your success. When you find the Uchiha survivor, Remember that fire purifies as well as destroys." With those cryptic final words, the dimensional window collapsed, leaving no trace of its existence except the lingering scent of salt water and burning leaves, Kushina's distinctive fragrance that Naruto remembered from the one time he had met her consciousness during his struggle to control Kurama's power. Silence fell over the group, each processing the extraordinary encounter in their own way. Finally, Naruto spoke, his voice steady despite the emotional turmoil evident in his eyes. We need to get to Kumogakure. Now. Wait, Tsunade cautioned. This could still be manipulation. An entity pretending to be your mother to guide our actions. It was her, Naruto stated with absolute certainty. Both Zarathos and Kurama confirmed it. That was a fragment of my mother's consciousness, preserved somehow during the sealing. She speaks truth, Vessel, Zarathos confirmed within his mind. The remnant exists in a dimensional fold between conventional realities, what some traditions call the nexus of all realities. Asterisk. If the Raikage detects unauthorized Konoha shinobi in his territory, it could trigger an international incident, Kakashi pointed out practically. Especially with a Jinchuriki involved. Then we make it authorized, Tsunade decided. I'll send an emergency communication to A, warning him of a potential threat to Yugito Nii. That should give us time to prepare an official delegation. We don't have time for diplomatic protocols, Ileana interjected. I can transport us directly to Kumogakure in seconds. And start a war when we appear unannounced in their village. Tsunade countered. No, we do this properly. One day of preparation won't doom us, especially if I send an advance warning. Naruto wanted to argue but recognized the logic in her position. International politics couldn't be ignored, even in the face of interdimensional threats. Fine, one day, but we leave at dawn tomorrow, regardless of the Raikage's response. As they continued toward Anbu headquarters for debriefing, Hinata moved to walk beside him. Are you all right? She asked quietly. Seeing your mother like that must have been confusing, he admitted. Part of me is angry she's been out there somewhere all this time, orchestrating events from the shadows. Part of me is just relieved to know she's not completely gone. Hinata nodded understanding. Family is complicated even without dimensional fragments and ancient conspiracies involved. The simple observation, delivered with such matter-of-fact acceptance, drew a genuine laugh from Naruto, the first since this entire situation began. That's putting it mildly. Ahead of them, Satana and Ileana walked side by side, their earlier antagonism temporary. Why set aside as they discussed the implications of the Kushina remnant's appearance? The Temple of Resurrection exists in your dimension, Satana asked quietly. Supposedly destroyed centuries ago, Ileana replied. But if she's there, quote, then the temple exists in a pocket dimension, accessible only through specific portals. Satana's expression grew troubled, which means she's not working alone. No single entity could maintain such a space indefinitely. The question becomes, who are her allies? Ileana's hand unconsciously shifted partially toward its soulsward form. And can we true Saint their agenda aligns with survival of the multiverse. Behind them all, unnoticed in the gathering dusk, a shadow moved independently of its caster, flowing across surfaces with liquid grace before vanishing into the ground completely. The Watcher had seen enough. Its master would be most interested in these developments. In the Anbu facility beneath Konoha, the debriefing lasted hours, each participant sharing their experiences from the accelerated training in Limbo and the encounter with both Magus and the Kushina remnant. Maps were consulted, strategies discussed, contingencies planned for the Kumogakure mission. Throughout it all, Naruto remained focused and engaged, his tactical suggestions surprising the veteran shinobi with their insight. The brash, impulsive genin had been aced by someone who thought in multiple dimensions, who considered possibilities others couldn't even conceive. As the meeting finally concluded near midnight, Tsunade held Naruto back while the others were escorted to secure quarters. When they were alone, she studied him with medical precision. The integration changes more than just your abilities, she observed. Your cognitive patterns are shifting. You're processing information differently. Naruto nodded, unsurprised by her assessment. Zarathos has existed for millennia across multiple dimensions. Kurama has lived through the entirety of shinobi history. Their perspectives are expanding mine. Is it permanent? Are you still? She hesitated, the unspoken question hanging between them. Still me. Naruto finished for her. Yes, but more than I was. It's not possession or control, Granny. It's synthesis. We're becoming something new together. Tsunade sighed, maternal concern momentarily overriding her Hokage persona. Just be careful you don't lose yourself in the process. The world needs Naruto Uzumaki, not just a vessel for ancient powers. Trust me, he replied with a ghost of his old grin, I'm too stubborn to get overwhelmed. Even by entities older than time. As he left the facility, escorted by Anbu to his temporary quarters, Naruto felt the strange watching sensation again, that sense of being observed. From just beyond conventional reality. This time, however, it carried a different signature, colder, calculating, tinged with something that might have been curiosity or hunger. We are being scried upon by multiple entities now, Zarathos informed him. Our activities have attracted attention across the dimensional spectrum. Great. Naruto thought back. Just what we needed, an audience for the apocalypse. Not merely an audience, Zarathos corrected grimly. Players entering the game, some seeking to prevent the collapse of the barriers, others to hasten it. And we're supposed to find 4 more vessels before reality falls apart, Naruto summarized. Starting with Yugito ni in Kumogakure. The Two Tails Jinchuriki is crucial, Zarathos confirmed. Her Biju and the Scepter fragment represent a unique power combination with particular effectiveness against certain old ones. And the others, the Lightning Emperor and Shadow Binder, my mother mentioned. Unclear, Zarathos admitted. The remnant speaks in riddles of necessity. Direct communication might reveal too much to those watching between dimensions. Naruto reached his assigned quarters, a secure apart and in the Anbu residential complex, and dismissed his escorts with a nod of thanks. As the door closed behind him, he immediately sensed another presence in the supposedly empty apartment. Chains manifested instantly, golden red links surrounding him in a defensive formation as he scanned the darkened space. Show yourself. A figure detached from the shadows in the corner, resolving into Hinata. Her Byakugan was inactive, but the silver flecks in her lavender eyes caught what little light filtered through the curtained windows. Hinata. Naruto let the chains dissolve, surprise overriding caution. How did you get past Anbu security? They're watching for conventional intrusion or chakra signatures, she explained, her voice steadier and more confident than he remembered from their childhood. My Byakugan allows me to see their blind spots now. Why are you here? He asked, sensing there was more to this midnight visit than simple conversation. She approached with quiet determination, stopping just before him. Because time is short, and there are things you need to know that I couldn't say in the debriefing. What things? During our time in Limbo, when you were fighting those creatures. She hesitated, then continued with renewed resolve. My Byakugan saw something in you, in your merged form. A pattern forming that matches ancient symbols in the Hyuga's secret archives. Naruto's interest sharpened. What kind of symbols? The kind that existed before the Sage of Six Paths, before chakra as we understand it. Her eyes met his directly. The kind that someone has been planning this convergence not for years or decades, but for millennia. The implications settled heavily between them. You think the Hyuga clan has knowledge of these old ones? Not knowledge exactly, she clarified. More like warnings. Records kept by our ancestors describing entities beyond comprehension that were sealed away, before the moon watched the earth. Before the moon, Naruto's eyes widened as connections formed. The Ten Tails body became the moon when the Sage of Six Paths used Six Paths, Shibaku Tensai. Hinata nodded, which means these entities were imprisoned before the Ten Tails itself was defeated, perhaps even before it appeared in our world. The pieces aligned with disturbing clarity. So the Ten Tails might have been connected to these old ones somehow. Maybe even a manifestation of their influence breaking through. It's possible, Hinata agreed. Which makes the infinite Tsukuyomi plan even more dangerous than we realized. If Madara had succeeded, he might have weakened the dimensional barriers enough for these things to return, Naruto finished grimly. Without even knowing what he was doing. Their conversation continued late into the night. Comparing information, developing theories, preparing for what awaited them in Kumogakure. When exhaustion finally claimed them, they fell asleep in separate rooms of the secure apartment. Both minds racing with possibilities despite their physical fatigue. As dawn approached, Naruto found himself in a dream unlike any he had experienced before, standing in a vast Empty space where stars burned in impossible colors and geometries that human minds weren't designed to comprehend. Before him stretched a massive chain composed of the same golden red energy as his manifestation, extending infinitely in both directions. Moving along this chain was a figure he recognized immediately, the Kushina remnant, though here her form was less solid, more conceptual, ales of energy and information flowing from her like a comet's tail. The dimensional chain connects all realities, she explained without preamble. What you and the others do in the coming days will determine whether it holds or shatters. Why didn't you tell me? Naruto asked, the question encompassing 16 years of absence, of secrets, of manipulation. Because knowledge is observed by those who seek it. She answered cryptically. Your ignorance was your protection until you were ready. And now you begin to understand what's at stake. She gestured, and the starscape around them shifted, revealing glimpses of other worlds, some similar to his own, others completely alien. Every dimension, every timeline, every possible reality stands on the edge of annihilation. Each chain beneath them shuddered violently, sections beginning to corrode and weaken. The old one's hunger for what exists beyond the chain, the undifferentiated possibility from which all realities form. If they break through, they will unmake everything, returning all existence to primordial chaos. And we're supposed to stop them. 7 vessels against entities that threaten the entire multiverse. 7 vessels who represent the fundamental forces that shape reality itself, she corrected. Life and death, order and chaos, creation and destruction, balance. Before he could question further, the dream began to dissolve, reality reasserting itself as morning approached. The last thing he heard was her voice, growing fainter as consciousness returned. Find Yugito Nii. The chain of judgment extends through her as well. Naruto awoke with the first light of dawn, the dream's clarity fading but its implications remaining. Outside his window, the unnatural aurora had intensified further, now visible even in daylight as pulsing ribbons of otherworldly color. In 3 months, according to Satana's estimate, those ribbons would tear open completely, allowing what waited beyond to enter their world. Unless they could find the remaining vessels and determine how to strengthen the barriers instead of breaking them. Their mission to Kumogakure wasn't just about saving one Jinshu Riki, it was the first step in saving all of reality. With renewed purpose, Naruto rose and prepared for the journey ahead. The spirits within him stirred as well, their energies flowing through his system with increasing harmony. Whatever awaited them in the village hidden in clouds, they would face it together, vessel and entities, becoming something greater than their individual parts. The chains of judgment were extending, link by link, across dimensions and between vessels. Whether they would bind reality together or tear it apart remained to be seen. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Dimensional Fractures. Lightning split the sky over Kumogakure, nature's electricity dancing between mountain peaks surrounding the hidden cloud village. Unlike Konoha's forest-sheltered streets or Suna's wind-swept dunes, Kumo perched among jagged summits, buildings seemingly carved from the mountains themselves. Here, shinobi learned to move with thunder's rhythm, to navigate peaks veiled in perpetual mist, to harness storm's fury within their techniques. Atop the highest spire stood a solitary figure, lithe, blonde, possessed of a predatory grace that set her apart even among elite jonin. Yugito Nii watched lightning waltz across clouds, her slitted pupils dilating as energy saturated the atmosphere. Within her, 2 entities stirred in response to the gathering storm, one familiar, a constant companion since childhood, the other newer. Awakened 3 months prior during a mission gone catastrophically wrong. You feel it too, she murmured, addressing both presences. The barriers weaken. Inside her mindscape, the 2 tails, Matabi, growled agreement, massive form composed of blue flame and black shadow pacing restlessly. Beside the Biju, occupying space that should have been impossible within a single consciousness, hulked something that defied conventional description, a crystalline entity that pulsed with crimson light, its form constantly shifting between humanoid and geometric abstraction. The crimson cosmos bleeds into your dimension, it communicated, voice like grinding crystal. My master stirs in his prison between realities. Yugito's eyes narrowed at the vast cloudscape before her. 3 months ago, she wouldn't have understood such cryptic statements. 3 months ago, she'd been simply a Jinchuriki, already burden enough for one kunoichi. Then came the Missy, on to investigate strange energy signatures at the Lightning Country's northern border, the encounter with the Crimson Meteorite, the explosion that should have killed her but instead transformed her. A chakra signature approached from behind, familiar, respected, though not entirely trusted. Reikage-sama, she acknowledged without turning. The fourth Reikage, massive frame silhouetted against mountain mist, joined her at the precipice. Unlike his brother Killer Bee, who had forged genuine partnership with his Biju, a maintained professional distance from his village's Jinchuriki, viewing them as weapons rather than people. Even now, Konoha sent an urgent communication, he stated without preamble, voice rumbling like distant thunder. They claim you're in danger from some interdimensional threat. His tone conveyed appropriate skepticism. Yugito's lips curved in wry amusement. They're about 3 months late with that warning. So you know something. Not a question, a demand for explanation. She turned finally, meeting his gaze directly, a liberty few were permitted with the notoriously volatile Reikage. I know that reality is breaking down around us. I know that what I contain now is more than just Matabi. Her right hand flexed, fingers momentarily crystallizing with crimson energy before returning to normal. And I know others like me exist. A's expression hardened. Explain. Now, I've been trying to for months, but your council dismissed my reports as trauma-induced hallucination. She gestured skyward, where unnatural colors had begun threading through natural storm clouds. Does that look like hallucination to you? Before it could respond, a messenger appeared in standard Kumo teleportation, body flicker technique modified for mountain terrain. Reikage-sama, Konoha delegation approaching the main gate. They have. The Chunin hesitated, professionalism warring with disbelief. They have people with them who aren't shinobi. Are possibly not human. A's legendary temper flashed. I authorized diplomatic contact, not a circus procession through my village. He turned back to Yugito. You're confined to quarters until I assess this situation. That's an order. Her posture shifted subtly, weight balanced perfectly between feet, muscles coiled with predatory readiness. With respect, Reikage-sama, I've spent my life following orders. Following protocols. Being the perfect Jinchuriki weapon. Her eyes briefly shifted, sclera darkening while irises glowed with dual-colored light, blue flame from Matabi, crimson from the newer entity. But these circumstances extend beyond village politics. Careful, Yugito, warned, lightning chakra crackling around massive forearms. Defiance borders on treason. Not defiance, she corrected. Perspective. What's coming doesn't care about village boundaries or shinobi hierarchies. It hungers for all reality. She stepped backward, suddenly perched precariously at cliff's edge. I need to meet these visitors from Konoha. With or without your blessing. Before it could stop her, she leaned backward, falling gracefully from the mountain spire. Instead of chakra control techniques to catch herself, her body transformed mid-drop, crystalline red energy enveloping her form before she vanished in a teleportation effect unlike any Kumo technique. A stared at the empty space, unaccustomed to being disobeyed. Mabui, he addressed his assistant without looking away from where Yugito had disappeared. Inform Darui and see, we have a situation. At Kumobiker's main gate, tension C. Rackled almost tangibly as the Konoha delegation awaited clearance. Official permission had arrived via emergency hawk communication, but Kumo's gatekeepers appeared understandably suspicious of their unusual group, particularly the two women who made no effort to disguise their otherworldly nature. Naruto stood slightly apart from the others, chains of judgment unconsciously manifesting in LVing around his wrists as he scanned the mountain village. Through senses enhanced by both Zarathos and Kurama, he perceived what others couldn't. Fracture lines in reality spreading like hairline cracks across the dimensional barrier. Particularly concentrated around one specific mountain spire. She's here, he stated with quiet certainty. I can feel the resonance. Hinata, standing beside him with Byakugan activated, nodded confirmation. Similar energy pattern to yours, but different configuration. The central peak shows highest concentration. Satana made a subtle gesture, crimson een. RGY briefly illuminating her fingertips before dissipating. Sidorak's essence, she murmured. Fascinating that it would manifest here, so far from any known dimensional weak points. Sidorak, Kakashi inquired. Visible eye narrowed with strategic interest. His inclusion in the delegation had been Tsunade's concession to protocol. Officially, he led the mission as Konoha's representative. An entity from our dimension, Ileana explained, her armor minimized to appear less threatening though still distinctly non-shinobi in design. A destructive force associated with unstoppable momentum. In my world, its power typically manifests through a vessel called the Juggernaut. Wonderful, Kakashi commented dryly. Another cosmic entity with apocalyptic potential. Just what our diplomatic mission needed. Further discussion halted as Kumo Anbu equivalents surrounded them, Storm Corps operatives in distinctive lightning-patterned masks. At their center stood a dark-skinned man with white hair partially covering one eye. His posture deceptively relaxed despite the massive cleaver-like sword strapped to his back. Darui of the Black Lightning, Kakashi greeted formally. The Hokage sends regards to the Raikage. Kakashi of the Sharingan, Darui returned with equal formality, though his gaze drifted skeptically over the others. The Raikage acknowledges Konoha's warning, but questions why your delegation includes. He paused, searching for diplomatic terminology, unconventional personnel. Before Kakashi could formulate an appropriately circumspect response, reality D.I. started several feet away, space folding inward before rupturing in a controlled breach that deposited a single figure in their midst. Kumo shinobi immediately shifted to defensive positions, weapons drawn. While Naruto's chains fully manifested in protective formation. Yugito Nii straightened, crystal red energy dissipating from her form as she assessed the newcomers with feline calculation. Her gaze settled immediately on Naruto. Recognition flashing across features schooled to reveal nothing. Vessel of twin flames, she addressed him directly, ignoring protocol completely. The boundaries between us thinned enough for communication 3 nights ago. Your dream walking was impressively controlled for a novice. Naruto blinked in surprise. I didn't consciously dream walk anywhere. Yet you were there. In the between space where entities like ours can communicate beyond physical constraints. Her attention shifted to Ileana and Satana, acknowledging them with slight nods. Queen of Limbo, daughter of Hellstrom, your reputations extend even to dimensions you've never personally visited. Darui stepped forward, cleaver half drawn. Yugito, you were ordered to remain in quarters. Orders become irrelevant when reality fractures, she replied without looking at him. Her focus returned to Naruto. 3 months ago, I encountered a meteorite composed of crystalline material unknown to our scientists. Upon contact, it shattered, releasing energy that bonded with both Matabi and myself. Since then, I've experienced expansion. The Sidorak fragment found its vessel, Satana observed, just as the Kushina remnant indicated. At this, Yugito's composure briefly faltered. You've had contact with the architect. The who? Naruto asked, chains retracting sly. TLY as immediate threat assessment downgraded. The one you call the Kushina remnant, Yugito clarified. In my visions, she appears as the architect, the one connecting vessels across dimensions. Enshin ratcheted higher as more Kumo shinobi appeared, surrounding the gathering. Above them, unnatural aurora pulsed more intensely against the storm-darkened sky, dimensional instability accelerated. In response to proximity between vessels. Hinata stepped forward unexpectedly, addressing the Kumo forces. We don't have time for diplomatic posturing. Look at your sky, look at what's happening to your reality. Her evolved Byakugan activated, silver-flecked eyes scanning the gathering storm. There's a breach forming directly above the central spire. Something's coming through. All eyes turned skyward, where natural storm clouds had gathered earlier. Unnatural distortions now formed, reality visibly folding inward like fabric caught in cosmic drain. Lightning still flashed, but its color had shifted to sickly green-purple, striking mountain peaks with increasing frequency. Darui, Yugito addressed her fellow Jonin, authority suddenly evident in her tone. Evacuate the upper residential districts. What's coming won't distinguish between shinobi and civilians. To his credit, the Kumo commander hesitated only briefly before nodding to his subordinates. Standard evacuation protocol, priority to children and elders. As Kumo forces dispersed to implement evacuation procedures, the dimensional visitors and vessels convened in impromptu council. Yugito led them to a sheltered outcropping that offered both cover and vantage point to observe the worsening distortion. The incursion accelerated when you crossed into Lightning Country, she informed them, unnecessary formal introductions dispensed with in face of crisis. Proximity between vessels catalyzes weakening barriers. That contradicts the Remnant's directive to unite the vessels, Kakashi pointed out, ever the tactical analyst. If bringing you together hastens these breaches, it's not proximity itself, but uncontrolled resonance, Ileana explained, her armor expanding to full combat configuration A. As she assessed the dimensional distortion. Untrained vessels emanate disharmonious energy. Once properly attuned, their combined presence should strengthen barriers rather than weaken them. And how exactly do we attune? Naruto asked. Practical as always. Satana's lips curved in predatory smile. There are several methods, some more pleasant than others. Before she could elaborate, the dimensional breach above them expanded dramatically, widening from basketball-sized distortion to massive portal nearly half a kilometer across. Through this opening poured creatures unlike any document. In shinobi history, beings with geometries that violated physical laws, trailing tendrils of energy that burned through reality itself wherever they touched. The mindless ones, Ileana identified grimly. Soulsword manifesting as her arm transformed. Dormammu's shock troops, soulless constructs designed to destabilize dimensional barriers and eliminate resistance before the main invasion. Yugito's form shimmered, body partially crystallizing as Sidorak's power manifested. They're targeting the village deliberately, drawing out defenders, creating chaos, preventing coordinated response. Naruto needed no further assessment. Chains erupted around him in golden red constellation, armor forming across his body as Zarathos and Kurama's energies merged with his own. Hinata, coordinate W. ITH Kumo's evacuation teams, your Byakugan can track these things better than their sensors. Kakashi-sensei, we need lightning release techniques to disrupt their energy patterns. He turned to the dimensional visitors. Ileana, Satana, you've fought these before. What kills them? Soul energy severs their connection to Dormammu, Ileana answered, soulsword gleaming. Hellfire disrupts their coherence patterns. Physical attacks merely inconvenience them temporarily. Then we split up, Naruto decided. Yugito and I take the central district where they're most concentrated. Ileana, secure the evacuation routes. Satana, prevent additional breaches if possible. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at Naruto's casual assumption of command but didn't contradict him. The vessel of twin flames had indeed become a natural leader through his transformation. I'll coordinate with Darui and the Storm Corps. We'll establish containment perimeter and focus on civilian protection. They dispersed with practiced efficiency, each understanding their role without lengthy explanation. As Naruto and Yugito launched themselves toward the central district, he noticed how differently she moved compared to S. Tandard Shinobi, her body seeming to exist partially out of phase with conventional reality, momentum carrying her impossible distances between leaps. Your integration with Sidorak is advanced, he observed as they traversed rooftops at superhuman speed. Necessity accelerates adaptation, she replied, her normally blonde hair now streaked with crystalline red filaments that floated as if underwater. Kumo has experienced incursions for months, smaller than this, but increasing in frequency and intensity. And the rakeage did nothing. Her expression hardened momentarily. He did what leaders always do when confronted with paradigm-shifting threats, denied, then rationalized, then classified. Until reality itself became impossible to ignore. They reached the village center where mindless ones had begun systematically destroying infrastructure, not random violence but coordinated strategy, targeting power distribution nodes, water systems, communication arrays. They're dismantling village support systems. Yugito observed. Standard siege tactics. Then let's show them standard shinobi response, Naruto replied, chains lashing outward to entangle the nearest cluster of invaders. The mindless ones resembled humanoids carved from basalt, their forms occasionally shifting between solid and energy states. Where eyes should exist, they had only swirling vortices of purple green light, the same sickly colors as the dimensional breach they'd emerged from. Physical attacks from panicked Kumo shinobi passed through them harmlessly, while their touch left horrible burns that consumed flesh and chakra simultaneously. Naruto's chains, however, affected them significantly, each link burning through their energy matrix, disrupting the connection to whatever power animated them. Where a chain fully encircled a mindless one, the creature imploded, dimensional energy collapsing inward before dissipating completely. Beside him, Yugito's transformation progressed further, her body now composed of shifting states between human flesh and crystalline red energy. When she struck a mindless one, her fist carried momentum that defied physics, continuing through the creature's foe. Like unstoppable force meeting immovable object, with unstoppable force emerging victorious. The Sidorak essence grants her dominion over momentum, Zarathos explained within Naruto's mindscape. While our chains represent judgment and binding across dimensions. Complementary abilities, Naruto noted, coordinating his attacks with Yugito's naturally, as if they'd trained together for years rather than meeting minutes earlier. They fought through the central plaza, systematically eliminating mindless ones while directing surviving Kumo shinobi toward evacuation routes. The creatures' tactics shifted in response, consolidating into larger formations, combining their energy to create localized dimensional disruptions that made movement increasingly difficult. "They're adapting to our attacks," Yugito called out, her voice carrying harmonics from both Matabi and the Sidorak fragment. "Standard invasion protocol. Probe defenses, identify threats, adjust strategy." "Then we change our approach too," Naruto replied. He thrust both hands skyward, chains extending vertically before branching outward like metallic tree limbs. Each branch further subdivided until a complex web of golden red energy covered several city blocks. Yugito immediately understood his strategy. As the chain web descended, she charged her body with maximum crystalline energy and slammed both fists into the ground. The resultant shockwave launched mindless ones upward into the descending web, each intersection point in the chain pattern serving as execution node that consumed the creatures caught within it. Across the village, similar battles unfolded. Ileana's soulsword carved through mindless ones with brutal efficiency, each strike not merely destroying bodies but severing their dimensional anchors completely. Kumo shinobi quickly learned to herd invaders toward her position, creating killboxes where her otherworldly weapon could eliminate multiple threats simultaneously. Satana took the errant approach, ascending to the highest accessible spire. She began complex invocation that drew upon her demonic heritage. Crimson sigils appeared in the air around her, each corresponding to a specific dimensional frequency. As she completed the pattern, energy surged from her hands toward the main breach, crimson light fighting against the sickly green-purple of the portal. "The dimensional sorceress attempts to seal the primary breach," observed a voice directly behind Naruto. He spun to find the Raikage standing amid destruction, muscular arms crossed over massive chest, expression unreadable. "Impressive allies you've brought, Uzumaki." "We're not here to impress anyone," Naruto responded, chains continuing to eliminate mindless ones even as he addressed A. "We're here because reality itself is under attack, and village boundaries mean nothing against what's coming." A's gaze shifted to Yugito, who continued battling nearby, her transformed state unlike anything Kumo had witnessed from their Jinchuriki before. She tried to explain. For months, she submitted reports describing dimensional anomalies, crystalline transformations, visions of cosmic entities. His expression hardened with rare self-criticism. "I dismissed them as stress-induced delusions. Ordered psychological evaluation rather than investigation." "You couldn't have known," Naruto offered, understanding the burden of leadership from his own experiences. "A leader's job is to know," I countered flatly. "To recognize threats before they materialize." "I failed." His body suddenly crackled with lightning chakra. Lightning release armor activating at maximum output. "I won't fail again. These invaders threaten my village. They die today." Before Naruto could warn him about the ineffectiveness of conventional attacks, A launched himself at supersonic speed toward the densest cluster of mindless ones. His lightning-enhanced fist connected with the lead creature, and unexpectedly, produced results. Where the lightning release armor contacted the dimensional entity, disruptive energy cascaded through its form, temporarily destabilizing its cohesion. Electrical disruption affects their energy matrix, Yugito realized. Adjusting her strategy immediately, Raikage, sustained contact destabilizes them long enough for conventional attacks to work. Across the battlefield, this information disseminated rapidly. Kumo's lightning release specialists began coordinating with physical combat teams, one destabilizing the creatures, the other delivering killing blows during their vulnerable moments. The tide gradually turned, invaders finding themselves systematically eliminated by increasingly coordinated defense. Above them, Satana's ritual reached crescendo, crimson energy surging upward to engulf the massive breach. For a moment, the portal seemed to shrink, its edges contracting as her counterforce pushed against Dormammu's sorcery. Then, without warning, green fire erupted from the Breach's center, not targeting the village below but striking directly at Satana herself. The impact launched her from her position, body trailing smoke as she plummeted toward the ground. Naruto dispatched a chain to intercept her fall, catching her moments before impact. As he lowered her safely, he noted with concern that her normally vibrant features had paled significantly, crimson hair dulled to rust red. Dormammu himself, she gasped, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. He's personally maintaining this breach. I can't seal it alone. The portal above expanded further, now nearly a kilometer across. From its depths emerged new entities, not mindless ones but humanoid figures clad in ornate armor that seemed forged from solidified darkness. Each wore a featureless mask from which emerged that same sickly green-purple light, and they moved with military precision rather than mindless aggression. Disciples of Dormammu, Ileana identified, teleporting to Naruto's position via stepping disc. Elite sorcerers from various dimensions who've pledged allegiance to the dark dimension. Far more dangerous than mindless ones. We need to combine our efforts, Naruto decided, assessing their increasingly precarious situation. Satana's right. None of us can seal that breach individually. The attunement ritual, Yugito stated, joining them as the last nearby mindless ones were eliminated by Kumo forces. It's our only option. Here, now, Ileana questioned, soulsword slicing through a dark disciple who'd teleported too close to their position. The ritual requires concentration, controlled environment. We don't have that luxury, Yugito interrupted. The barrier weakens exponentially with each passing minute. If we don't harmonize our energies now, there won't be enough reality left to save. Naruto surveyed the battlefield. Kumo forces rallying under A's leadership, Kakashi coordinating joint defense with Darui, Hinata directing evacuation teams with Byakugan enhanced precision. They were holding their own against current invasion force, but the portal continued growing, promising worse to come. What do we need? He asked. Decision made. Physical connection between vessels. Satana explained, struggling to her feet despite obvious injuries. Simultaneous meditation state. Access to our internal entities. She gestured to herself and Ileana. We'll create containment circle to manage energy discharge and prevent interdimensional feedback loop. How long? Naruto pressed. Under ideal conditions. Hours, Ileana answered truthfully. Under battlefield conditions with active dimensional breach overhead. Unknown. We'll buy you time, came Kakashi's voice as he appeared beside them, Sharingan spinning as he tracked Dark Disciples' movements. Darui and I have established defensive perimeter. A is coordinating counteroffensive. His visible eye crinkled in that familiar expression that somehow conveyed confidence despite covering most of his face. Do what you need to do. We'll handle the rest. Hinata arrived moments later, Byakugan scanning their position before confirming, this location has structural integrity despite surrounding damage. Stable foundation 5 meters down, natural rock rather than constructed material. Without further discussion, Ileana thrust her soulsword into the ground at their position. Silver energy radiating outward to create circular platform approximately 10 meters in diameter. Containment Stage 1, she announced as symbols appeared around the circumference. Heart magical sigil, heart mathematical equation. Heart dimensional coordinates. Satana mirrored her actions on the opposite side, crimson energy flowing from her hands into the ground, creating counterpoint to Ileana's silver circle. Containment Stage 2, she confirmed as her symbols interlocked with the first set, creating complex pattern that began rotating slowly, alternate segments spinning in opposite directions. Vessels at cardinal points, Ileana directed, Naruto north, Yugito south, Hinata east. Wait, Naruto interrupted, Hinata too, but she doesn't contain multiple entities. Her Byakugan, evolution represents different adaptation pattern, Satana explained rapidly as Dark Disciples began concentrating attacks on their position, apparently recognizing the ritual's significance. Visual perception across dimensional boundaries, crucial component for what we're attempting. Understanding the stakes, they took positions as directed. The moment they stepped onto their designated points within the rotating pattern, energy surged through the entire array, silver and crimson light intertwining, creating stable framework within which the vessels could connect. Physical contact, Ileana instructed. Hands linked. They stretched arms toward the circle's center, fingers interlocking in triangular formation. The moment contact completed, visible energy discharged from each vessel, golden red chains from Naruto, crystalline momentum trails from Yugito, silver lavender visual matrices from Hinata. These energies coalesced at the circle's center, forming rapidly spinning sphere that pulsed in complex rhythm. Now we go within, Satana directed. Each to your mindscape, bringing consciousness of other vessels with you. Naruto closed his eyes, familiar process of entering his Inscape accelerated by Zarathos and Kurama's active cooperation. This time, however, he maintained awareness of Yugito and Hinata's hands clasped in his, their consciousness following his inward jaw. Nay-like spiritual tethers stretching between separate realities. The temple cavern complex of his mindscape appeared, but transformed, expanded impossibly to accommodate not just his entities but connections to others. Kurama and Zarathos occupied their usual positions, but now golden red chains extended beyond the boundaries of his mental space, disappearing into dimensional passages that hadn't existed before. When Yugito's consciousness materialized beside him, she brought her own mindscape partially with her, a massive crystalline chamber where Matabi's blue fire form prowled alongside. Crystalline entity that pulsed with Sidorak's power. Similarly, Hinata's arrival carried fragment of her mental landscape, a silver-white plane across which Byakugan-derived visual matrices flowed like living mathematical equations. Remarkable, Yugito observed, her mindscape form more feline than her physical body, moving with liquid grace as she studied their merged mental spaces. True diamonds. Ional confluence without reality collapse. The vessels converge as designed, rumbled the crystalline entity, Sidorak's fragment speaking directly to all present. The architect's pattern unfolds. Yet incomplete, Zarathos countered. Flaming skull tilting toward emptiness where additional connections should exist. 4 vessels remain unidentified or unlinked. We work with what we have, Naruto stated firmly, refusing to be deterred by incompleteness. The breach expands above Kuma while we theorize. How do we attune? In answer, Matabi padded forward, blue flames leaving no scorch marks despite their intensity. We who are contained must first harmonize, then guide our vessels to complementary frequency. The 2 tails approached Kurama, ancient Biju acknowledging each other, with dignity born from millennia of shared existence. When they touched, Firecat to Chakra Fox, energy cascaded between them, resonating at increasingly synchronized frequency. Similarly, Zarathos X tended burning chains toward Sidorak's fragment, the contact creating dimensional harmonics visible as rippling patterns across all their mindscapes. The crystalline entity shifted, portions of its geometrically complex form aligning with the chains, creating stable connection where chaos should have resulted. And me? Hinata asked, her mindscape form surrounded by those silver-flecked visual matrices. Lacking distinct entity but possessing evolved perception that transcended conventional boundaries. You are the seer, Zarathos explained, a chain extending toward her with surprising gentleness. Your evolution allows perception across barriers others cannot penetrate. You complete the circuit. Judgment, momentum, perception. When the chain made contact with her visual matrices, the FFECT cascaded through all connected systems, the silver lavender energy flowing along golden red links to interface with crystalline red structures, creating triangulated harmony that suddenly stabilized the entire merged mindscape. It's working, Yugito observed as chaotic energies throughout their shared space began organizing into coherent patterns. Disharmony becoming resonance. Outside, in physical reality, those defending their position witnessed extraordinary transformation. The 3 vessels at cardinal points began emanating synchronized energy pulses, while Ileana and Satana channeled these harmonics into containment pattern that strengthened rather than weakened. The sphere at the circle's center expanded gradually, its rotation stabilizing as constituent energies achieved coherence. Above them, the massive breach responded, its expansion slowing, edges becoming less ragged as the harmonized energy below created counterforce to Dormammu's dimensional sorcery. Dark Disk. Ipels redoubled their attacks on the ritual circle, recognizing existential threat to their invasion, but found themselves intercepted by increasingly coordinated defense from Kumo and Konoha forces. In the merged mindscape, the entities guided their vessels through final attunement phase, teaching them to consciously manipulate the harmonic patterns now flowing through their combined consciousness. Visualization becomes reality at this junction, Zarathos instructed. See the breach sealed, barriers restored, dimensions properly separated. Asterisk. More than visualization, Yugito corrected, her greater experience with dimensional manipulation evident. Intent manifested through combined will, focused through complementary abilities. They concentrated together, each bringing unique perspective to shared purpose. Naruto's chains represented binding and judgment across dimensional boundaries. Yugito's crystalline momentum provided force necessary to manipulate dimensional structures. Hinata's visual matrices offered precise targeting and reality mapping that guided their combined efforts. In physical reality, the sphere at the circle's center suddenly expanded dramatically, engulfing all three vessels and their facilitators in radiant energy that shot skyward in coherent beam. Where this energy struck the dimensional breach, reality itself seemed to ripple, then gradually knit back. Together, portal edges drawing inward like wound healing in accelerated time. Dark disciples caught in the energy beam's path disintegrated instantly, their forms unraveling as harmonized dimensiona. L-force nullified their extra-dimensional nature. Those beyond its reach retreated hastily, recognizing fundamental shift in battlefield dynamics. Within the merged mindscape, they could perceive the effects of their work, reality restructuring itself according to their guided intent, dimensional barriers restoring proper separation that had been artificially weakened. Dormammu resists, Zarathos warned as counterpressure built against their efforts. His investment in this breach exceeds standard incursion parameters. Indeed, the portal fought their closure attempt, green fire erupting from its center again. This time forming massive humanoid face composed entirely of flame. Eyes like collapsed stars glared down at Kumogakure, focusing particularly on the energy beam emanating from the ritual circle. Vessels of the convergence, boomed voice that rattled reality itself, each word physically painful to those who heard it. Your resistance is noted but futile. The barriers fall regardless of your efforts. The old ones return as prophesied. Who addresses us? Naruto demanded, chains extending protectively around all three vessels within the mindscape. Dormammu, Lord of the Dark Dimension, Herald of the Beyond. The flaming face shifted, expression approximating cruel amusement. You struggle admirably, little vessels, but lack crucial understanding. The architect you serve has not revealed her true purpose. Ignore him, Yugito warned. Psychological warfare, standard tactic when direct approach fails. Your female companion shows wisdom born of experience, Dormammu continued, apparently able to perceive their merged mindscape despite its extra-dimensional nature. But consider, why 7 vessels? Why these specific combinations of power? Why now, as the cosmic cycle reaches critical juncture? Despite herself, Hinata's concentration wavered slightly. The Hyuga archives mention 7 seals containing primordial darkness, she admitted. 7 keys that maintain cosmic balance. Precisely. Seer. 7 keys. The face expanded further, green fire spreading across significant portion of the sky. Keys can lock, or unlock. The difference lies merely in direction of turn. Dormammu's psychological assault might have continued indefinitely had another voice not suddenly interjected. Female. Authoritative, emanating not from the breach but from within their merged mindscape itself. Enough, Dread One. You've overstayed your welcome in this dimension. A new presence materialized within their shared consciousness, the Kushina remnant, though her appearance had evolved since Naruto last encountered her. Now she seemed composed partially of the same golden-red energy as his chains, her form more conceptual than physical, data streams and formation patterns flowing through and around her like living garment. The architect herself, Dormammu acknowledged, something like genuine concern entering his thunderous voice. Unexpected. Your eye. NTERFERENCE pattern typically employs greater subtlety. Circumstances necessitate direct intervention, the remnant replied calmly. She turned to the vessels. Continue the closure sequence. I'll handle our unwelcome visitor. She extended both hands toward the mindscape's upper boundary, golden red energy streaming upward to create counterpoint against Dormammu's manifestation. Where her power met his, reality itself seemed to hold its breath, two cosmic forces canceling each other temporarily. Now, the remnant commanded. While he's contained, the vessels redoubled their efforts, using harmonized energy through the dimensional beam. The breach contracted more rapidly now, Dormammu's counterpressure temporarily neutralized by the remnant's intervention. Within minutes, the kilometer-wide portal had shrunk to mere meters across, its edges sealing with finality that resonated across multiple dimensions. With a final surge of combined will, they completed the closure, reality snapping back into proper alignment with audible thunderclap that echoed throughout Kumogakure. The sickly green-purple light vanished, natural stormy sky returning overhead as dimensional integrity restored itself. In the merged mindscape, Dormammu's presence faded with final ominous declaration. This victory is temporary, vessels. The convergence comes regardless of your efforts. Ask your ITECT what happens when all 7 keys turn simultaneously. As his manifestation disappeared completely, the Kushina remnant turned to address the vessels directly. You've done well. The harmonica attunement succeeded beyond expected parameters. You could have warned us Dormammu would manifest personally, Yugito noted, her mindscape form displaying traces of Matabi's feline displeasure. Quote, foreknowledge creates fixed observation points across dimensional barriers, the remnant explained cryptically. Some events must unfold without prediction to avoid collapse into singular probability. What did he mean about keys turning? Hinata asked directly. The Hyuga archives describe similar concept, 7 keys maintaining cosmic balance. The remnant's expression grew troubled. Dimensio. Null barriers operate through multiple redundant systems. The vessels represent failsafe mechanism, capable of reinforcing barriers or, in extreme circumstances, allowing controlled breach to prevent catastrophic uncontrolled collapse. So we're meant to let the old ones through? Naruto questioned incredulously. After everything you've said about them destroying all reality. No, the remnant corrected firmly. You're meant to prevent their uncontrolled return. The difference is crucial. She gestured, creating visual representation of multiple interlocking dimensional barriers. Complete isolation between dimensions isn't sustainable long-term. Pressure builds, eventually causing catastrophic failure. Controlled interchange maintains equilibrium, like pressure release valves in Kumo's hydroelectric systems. Yugito observed, understanding the mechanical principle. Regular controlled release prevents explosive decompression. Precisely. The vessels serve as conscious regulators, maintaining boundaries while allowing necessary dimensional respiration. The remnant's form began to fade, her temporary manifestation apparently reaching limits. But Dormammu and others seek to weaponize your function, turning keys to unlock rather than regulate. How do we find the other vessels? Naruto asked urgently as her presence diminished. The Lightning Emperor awakens in Land of Iron. Her increasingly transparent form answered. The Shadow Binder already approaches, drawn by your harmonic resonance. Her final words came as mere whisper across their consciousness. Trust your instincts. The pattern unfolds as designed, despite interference. With that, her presence vanished completely, leaving the 3 vessels alone with their respective entities in the gradually separating mindscape. She withholds crucial information, Kurama growled, tails lashing with familiar suspicion. Yet her actions align with dimensional preservation, Zarathos countered. Unlike Dormammu, whose agenda unmistakably trends toward destruction. We need to exit the meditation state, Yugito advised practically. Maintaining merged mindscape drains exponentially over time without proper anchor points. They withdrew gradually, consciousness returning to physical bodies still positioned at cardinal points within Ileana and Satana's ritual circle. As awareness of external reality returned, they discovered significant changes had occurred during their internal harmonization. The dimensional breach had indeed closed completely, natural storm clouds reclaiming Kumogakure's sky. Arc disciples had vanished along with their master's portal, while remaining mindless ones had collapsed into inert piles of rapidly dissolving stone. Kumo and Konoha forces surrounded their position in defensive formation, though tension had visibly decreased with the invaders' disappearance. Most surprisingly, Ileana and Satana had expanded their containment circle considerably, the rotating paw TTERN now encompassing nearly 50 meters diameter. Symbols evolved into complex mathematical representation of dimensional constants. Both dimensional sorceresses looked exhausted but satisfied, the normally antagonistic relationship temporarily set aside in service to common purpose. Attunement successful, Ileana confirmed as the vessels released their handclasp. Your combined energy sig. Nature has stabilized at sustainable harmonic frequency. Translation for those without interdimensional doctorates. Naruto requested, rising somewhat unsteadily to his feet. Satana smirked, some of her usual provocative demeanor returning despite evident fatigue. You three no longer cause reality migraines simply by existing in proximity. Your disruptive resonance has transformed into reinforcing harmony. How long will it last? Hinata asked practically, Byakugan scanning their surroundings as she assessed aftermath. Indefinitely, barring significant trauma or dimensional interference, Ileana answered. The pattern you've established should self-reinforce through regular interaction. The Raikage approached their position, lightning armor deactivated though crackling energy s. Till occasionally danced across massive forearms. Behind him came Darui, Kakashi, and various Kumo officials, all wearing expressions ranging from cautious relief to lingering suspicion. The threat appears neutralized, acknowledged. Diplomatic understatement for complete dimensional invasion they'd just repelled. Kumo recognizes your assistance in this matter. The threat is delayed, not eliminated, Yugito corrected her leader. Newfound confidence evident in her posture and tone. What we experienced today was merely vanguard. Dormammu will attempt breaches elsewhere, targeting remaining vessels and weak points in dimensional barriers. The woman speaks truth, came unexpected voice from beyond their immediate group. Attention shifted to newcomer approaching from village outskirts, tall, dark-haired woman wearing distinctive Kurigakure Jonin attire, though modified with symbols that appeared distinctly non-shinobi in origin. Her eyes, visible even at distance, contained Unatu. Raw darkness that occasionally shifted like living shadow. The shadow binder, Yugito identified instantly, recognition requiring no introduction. The Kiri Kunoichi inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. Mei Terumi, officially. Though what I contain now extends beyond any single identity. Her gaze swept across the gathered vessels, lingering particularly on Naruto. The harmonic resonance NCE you generated drew me across considerable distance. Impressive work for novices. You're one of the 7 vessels, Naruto stated rather than asked, sensing distinctive energy signature emanating. G from the Mizukage, familiar yet alien simultaneously. Indeed, housing both my bloodline limits and something far older that awakened during recent complications in water country. She approached their circle, studying the mathematical symbols with evident comprehension despite their extra-dimensional complexity. The entity calls itself Nightmare, though that translation inadequately captures its true nature. Satana hissed in surprise, genuine concern flashing across normally controlled features. Nightmare is no ally. His realm borders dreams themselves, feeding on fear and psychic distress. I'm well aware of my tenant's proclivities, Mei replied dryly. We've reached accommodation after considerable negotiation. Her lips curved in smile that somehow conveyed both diplomatic charm and predatory warning. He provides interdimensional insight. I prevent his more problematic indulgences. The gathering had expanded significantly. 3 confirmed vessels, 2-dimensional sorceresses. Representatives from 3 major shinobi villages, and various entities observing through their hosts. Political complexities alone would challenge most diplomatic frameworks, even without looming interdimensional catastrophe. Pragmatic as always, addressed immediate concerns. Kumogakure requires recovery period after today's attack. I propose summit meeting tomorrow to address these developments properly. He turned specifically to Yugito. Your quarters restriction is lifted. Full access to village resources authorized for investigation of these dimensional matters. Recogni. Tian of legitimate threat rather than psychological delusion represented significant shift in Raikage's perspective, pragmatic adaptation rather than stubborn adherence to outdated assessment. Yugito acknowledged this with respectful nod, her own antagonism visibly diminishing. The vessels should remain in proximity following attunement, Ileana advised. Harmonization stabilizes with continued interaction. Diplomatic quarters will be arranged for all representatives, a decided, signaling to his assistants. Security protocols modified to accommodate your unique circumstances. As arrangements proceeded through proper channels, Naruto found himself standing somewhat apart from others, processing implications of day's events. Within hours, their understanding had expanded dramatically, 3 vessels confirmed. 4th identified in Land of Iron, Dormammu's personal interest established, and the Remnant's direct intervention demonstrating stakes beyond initial assessment. Hinata joined him in this moment of reflection, her evolved Byakugan deactivated though silver flecks remained visible in lavender eyes. "You're troubled," she observed simply. Dormammu said the Remnant, "Why mother? Hasn't revealed her true purpose," Naruto admitted. "That our function is, he's, could lock or unlock the barriers. He's the Lord of the Dark Dimension," Hinata reminded him. "Deception serves his interests, but effective deception contains elements of truth," came Mei's voice as the Mizukage approached them, shadow occasionally shifting unnaturally beneath her feet. "Your concern shows wisdom, Naruto Uzumaki. Healthy skepticism should extend to all participants in this cosmic game, even those claiming familial connection." Yugito completed their impromptu gathering, crystalline. Energy mostly receded though occasional red flickers still manifested around her hands. The architect's methods are necessarily obscure given interdimensional observation constraints. Direct cation risks revealing crucial information to entities monitoring dimensional fluctuations. "You trust her completely?" Naruto questioned, studying his fellow Jinchuriki. "Trust requires complete information," Yugito replied pragmatically. "I acknowledge pattern consistency in her interventions while maintaining independent assessment." Her expression softened slightly. "But yes, her actions consistently promote dimensional stability rather than collapse." As their conversation continued, Kakashi coordinated logistics with Kumo officials while Ileana and Satana maintained dimensional monitoring for potential secondary breaches. The day's events had altered fundamental dynamics between villages, between vessels, between dimensions themselves, political boundaries suddenly insignificant compared to cosmic concerns. That evening, Kumo's hospitality manifested in comfortable diplomatic quarters arranged for all visitors, practical luxury rather than ostentatious display, reflecting Mountain Village's pragmatic culture. As representatives from different villages settled into temporary residence, new connections formed across traditional boundaries. Naruto found himself on balcony overlooking cloud-shrouded peaks. The unnatural aurora temporarily diminished following breach closure though not entirely absent. The dimensional bleeding continued despite their intervention, the fundamental weakening of barriers proceeding on cosmic timetable that their actions had delayed but not halted. "Contemplating our cosmic insignificance," came Satana's voice as she joined him, her demonic aspects minimized though red in black eyes remained unchanged. "Excellent activity for digestion. Trying to make sense of everything," he corrected, chains unconsciously manifesting around his wrists in response to his thoughtful mood. 3 vessels confirmed, 4th mentioned in Land of Iron, 3 more still unknown. Dormammu personally involving himself. The Remnant, my mother, appearing directly during crisis. Pattern recognition within chaos, Satana observed, leaning against balcony railing with casual grace that belied her supernatural nature. The universe consistently demonstrates mathematical elegance even during collapse scenarios. "You speak differently than Ileana," Naruto noted. "More academically." Satana smiled, hints of elongated canines visible. "Consequences of our respective backgrounds. The Queen of Limbo learned dimensional sorcery through trauma and necessity. I received formal education in both hellish and mortal institutions. Your father really is Satan?" Naruto asked directly, Zarathos' knowledge providing context for such concepts despite their absence in shinobi theology. Mephisto technically, though translations between dimensional pantheons create inevitable nomenclature discrepancies. She shrugged elegantly. "Ruler of a hell dimension regardless of specific designation. And you oppose him despite your heritage." "Because of my heritage," she corrected. "Intimacy with infernal politics provides unique perspective on power's corrupting influence. Her expression hardened momentarily. The old ones make my father seem benevolent by comparison. At least he appreciates existence itself, having considerable investment in mortal souls and their delicious anguish. Their conversation might have continued along these philosophical lines had Yugito not appeared in doorway leading to the balcony. Unlike earlier, when crystal energy had manifested externally during battle, now she appeared completely human, blonde hair freed from battle restraints. Formal Kumo attire replaced with simple yukata appropriate for evening relaxation. The Raikage requests Satana's presence, she informed them. Questions regarding diamonds. Ional countermeasures for potential future incursions. Satana raised an elegant eyebrow. Your leader works late, rarely sleeps, Yugito confirmed. Particularly after threats to his village. With casual nod acknowledging the summons, Satana departed, leaving the two Jinchuriki alone on moonlit balcony. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with shared understanding. That transcended conventional communication. How long have you been aware of your status as vessel? Naruto eventually asked. 3 months since direct awakening, though retrospectively I recognize preliminary signs extending back years. Yugito's gaze remained fixed on cloud-veiled mountains surrounding Kumo. Dreams of crystalline lattices, momentum calculations that shouldn't have been intuitive. Occasional glimpses beyond conventional dimensional boundaries. The meteorite was catalyst rather than cause, Naruto deduced. Precisely. Just as your encounter with Zarathos represented culmination of process initiated during original sealing. Her attention shifted to him, analytical assessment obvious despite casual setting. Your integration proceeds remarkably quickly. Weeks rather than months. Necessity accelerates adaptation, he echoed her earlier statement, drawing small smile in response. Indeed. She moved to stand beside him at railing, proximity allowing perceptio. N of subtle energy harmonics still resonating between them following attunement ritual. The remnant's appearance today confirms escalating timeline. Events accelerate toward convergence point. You know more about this than you've shared publicly, Naruto observed, not accusation but recognition. Yugito considered this assessment before acknowledging its accuracy with slight nod. The Sidorak fragment carries knowledge from previous dimensional cycle. Fragmented, inconsistent, but revealing patterns beyond what others have accessed. She turned to face him directly. The convergence sense cosmic correction mechanism, reality's immune response to interdimensional infection. The old ones, among others, entities that exist beyond dimensional framework, seeking entry into structured reality. Her voice remained clinically detached despite apocalyptic subject matter. Previous cycles ended with partial breaches, controlled release of pressure, restoration of boundaries. Curry, NT cycle shows unprecedented acceleration and coordination among extradimensional forces. You think someone's deliberately weakening the barriers, Naruto concluded. Beyond Dormammu or other entities we've encountered. Evidence suggests probability approaching certainty, she confirmed. Pattern analysis indicates orchestration beyond capabilities of any single dimensional entity, even one as powerful as Dormammu. This revelation aligned with Naruto's growing suspicions following Dormammu's confrontation and the Remnant's limited explanations. Even my mother may not know the full picture. The architect operates within significant constraints, Yugito acknowledged. Her fragment nature limits information processing capabilities compared to her original complete form. The cations settled between them, conspiracy beyond cosmic scale, vessels as unwitting players in game whose rules remained partially obscured, dimensional barriers failing according to someone's grand design rather than natural deterioration. Their conversation might have continued along these disturbing lines had another presence not made itself known, Hinata, appearing in doorway Yugito had entered through earlier. Unlike the Two Tails Jinchuriki, she hadn't changed from battle attire, though her Byakugan remained deactivated. Sorry to interrupt, she began, then noticed their serious expressions. Is everything all right? Just comparing vessel experiences, Yugito offered smoothly, tension in her posture relaxing imperceptibly. Your Byakugan evolution provides unique perspective we lack. Hinata joined them on balcony, completing triangle formation that unconsciously mirrored their positions during attunement ritual. The mathematical patterns underlying dimensional barriers became visible during our merged mindscape experience, she confirmed. I can perceive structural weaknesses now, even without active Byakugan. That ability alone makes you a crucial component in vessel configuration, Yugito noted. Precise targeting requires accurate perception. Conversation shifted to technical aspects of their respective abilities, comparing notes on integration processes and adaptation challenges. As they spoke, subtle energy harmonics continued resonating between them, attunement maintaining itself through proximity and interaction, strengthening connections initially established during ritual. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Zarathos and Kurama observed these developments with mixed reactions. The vessels harmonize naturally following initial attunement, Zarathos noted with approval. The architect's design functions despite accelerated timeline. Yet crucial information remains obscured, Kurama countered, eternal skeptic regarding cosmic manipulations. The Two-Tails vessel knows more than she reveals. As does the Shadow Binder. And our own vessel's mother speaks in riddles rather than plain truths. Cosmic chess necessitates limited perspective among playing pieces, Zarathos acknowledged. Though these vessels increasingly transcend such limitations through combined awareness. Their internal debate continued while Naruto maintained external conversation, multitasking across dimensional boundaries with increasing facility as integration progressed. This newfound cognitive capacity allowed him to simultaneously engage with fellow vessels while analyzing implications of their collective situation. Eventually conversation turned toward practical matters, tomorrow's summit meeting, journey to Land of Iron to locate the Lightning Emperor, ongoing search for remaining vessels. Political considerations remained relevant despite cosmic stakes, Shinobi Village dynamics requiring diplomatic navigation alongside dimensional crisis management. As evening deepened toward night, they separated to respective quarters, though proximity remained within diplomatic wing of Raikage's administrative complex. The day's events had fundamentally altered the IR relationships, shared mindscape experience creating connections transcending conventional interaction, harmonized energies responding to each other even during physical separation. Naruto settled into provided accommodations. Chains fully retracted though golden red energy occasionally manifested around his hands during moments of deep contemplation. Within his mindscape, Zarathos and Kurama continued their analysis of developing situation, comparing perspectives across dimensional boundaries and historical contexts. The Shadow Binder's presence changes calculations significantly, Zarathos observed. Nightmare represents concept entity whose domain intersects all conscious minds. His involvement suggests dreamscape dimensions face equal threat from barrier degradation. Or he seeks advantage through early positioning. Kurama countered skeptically. Nightmare feeds on fear. What greater fear exists than multiversal collapse? Their debate continued into deeper philosophical considerations. Nature of dimensional boundaries, theological implications of Old One's existence, moral complexities of vessels' role as cosmic keystones. Through this dialogue, Naruto's understanding expanded beyond human framework, incorporating perspectives spanning multiple dimensions and millennia of existence. Sleep eventually claimed him despite mental stimulation, dreams unusually vivid yet controlled, side effect of dimensional attunement and enhanced awareness. Within these dreams, he perceived possibilities branching across infinite timelines, vessels converging through cosmic necessity rather than coincidence. Patterns within chaos revealing elegant mathematical certainty underlying apparent randomness. Morning arrived with crystalline clarity across Kumogakure, storm clouds dispersed following dimensional breach closure, mountain peaks visible against azure sky. The unnatural aurora remained faintly visible despite daylight, reminder that fundamental problems persisted despite yesterday's victory. The summit convened in Raikage's private council chamber, neutral territory for representatives from multiple villages and dimensions. Attendance reflected unprecedented gathering. Representing Kumogakure with Yugito and Darui, Kakashi speaking for Konoha with Naruto and Hinata, Maiterumi as both Mizukage and Vessel, Ileana and Satana providing dimensional expertise beyond shinobi experience. Yesterday's incursion demonstrates threat transcending village boundaries, began without unnecessary ceremony, practical nature asserting itself even in extraordinary circumstances. Conventional defenses proved partially effective against standard troops but inadequate against higher-order entities. Similar attacks have occurred in Water Country, May confirmed, Shaw. Dow's occasionally shifting unnaturally around her feet despite bright lighting. 3 incidents of increasing intensity over past month, culminating in dimensional breach at Blood Mist ceremonial grounds. The pattern continues across dimensions, Ileana added. Armor minimized though Soulsword remained partially manifested, silver energy occasionally rippling along her right arm. My World XP. Reinst 17 major incursions in past year, all targeting specific nexus points or vessels. Which brings us to crucial question, Kakashi interjected, visible eye scanning gathered representatives. How do we proceed given accelerating timeline and incomplete vessel assembly? Discussion proceeded along multiple tracks simultaneously. Defensive preparations against future incursions, Diplo. Modich protocols for cross-village cooperation, vessel protection and training, search parameters for remaining keystones. Throughout complex negotiations, Naruto observed shifting alliances and perspectives with newfound strategic awareness. The Lightning Emperor in Land of Iron represents immediate priority, Yugito stated firmly, crystalline energy briefly manifesting around her hands for emphasis. 4 vessels harmonized would create significantly stronger dimensional stability field than current configuration. While simultaneously painting larger target for Dormammu and his associates, Satana countered. Each vessel located increases risk profile exponentially. Risk already exceeds containment parameters, May observed, Mizukage's diplomatic training evident despite eldritch knowledge influencing her perspective. Defensive posture merely delays inevitable confrontation. Agreement eventually crystallized around proactive approach, joint expedition to Land of Iron Compress. Ing representatives from each village alongside dimensional specialists. Preparations would commence immediately following summit conclusion, departure scheduled for following morning to allow Nisesa. Rai diplomatic communications with samurai leadership. As formal meeting transitioned to practical planning session, participants broke into functional groups addressing specific aspects of developing situation. Naruto found himself working alongside Yugito and Mei, vessel coordination requiring specialized attention separate from conventional shinobi preparations. The Lightning Emperor likely remains unaware of their vessel status, Mei noted as they consulted maps of samurai territory. Unlike us, who received direct catalyst events or gradual awakening. The remnant's identification suggests pre-existing knowledge. Yugito countered, analyzing intelligence reports concerning recent Land of Iron activities. Pattern recognition indicates coordinated positioning rather than random distribution. You mean someone deliberately placed a vessel among the samurai? Naruto questioned, chains unconsciously manifesting around his wrists during strategic consideration. Positioned or identified potential candidate already present, May clarified. The architect works through probability manipulation rather than direct intervention where possible. Their discussion continued through technical details, energy signature identification parameters, harmonization protocols for unawakened vessel, contingency planning for hostile response scenarios. Throughout these preparations, their tuned energies continued reinforcing established connections, vessel harmonics strengthening through proximity and shared purpose. Across the chamber, Hinata worked with sensory specialists from multiple villages. Her evolved Byakugan providing unique capabilities for dimensional breach detection and early warning systems. Her status among vessels remained somewhat ambiguous, lacking multiple entities but possessing evolutionary adaptation specifically oriented toward dimensional perception. The Hyuga's visual prowess now extends approximately 30% beyond conventional dimensional boundaries. Darui noted with professional assessment as sensory team developed detection protocols. Remarkable adaptation without catastrophic catalyst event. Some vessels represent gradual evolution rather than sudden transformation. Ileana explained, her dimensional expertise providing context beyond shinobi understanding. The seer archetype typically develops through incremental expansion on rather than traumatic boundary dissolution. Planning continued throughout day, preparations accelerating as cosmic timetable became increasingly apparent to all participants. By evening, joint expedition had been fully organized, diplomatic permissions secured, travel arrangements finalized, tactical contingencies established for various encounter scenarios. As daylight faded across Kumogakure, Naruto found himself once again on diplomatic quarters balcony, observing unnatural aurora that had intensified following days' preparations. Within his mindscape, Zarathos and Kurama continued their ongoing analysis. Perspectives evolving through exposure to other vessels and dimensional entities. The gathering proceeds according to design despite timeline acceleration, Zarathos observed. 4 vessels converging, 3 remaining to be identified. Asterisk. Yet crucial questions persist, asterisk Kurama countered. The architect's ultimate purpose, the shadow binder's true agenda, the nature of whatever orchestrates events beyond individual players. Asterisk. Their philosophical debate might have continued indefinitely had Naruto not sensed familiar presence approaching, Yugito, moving with characteristic feline grace that transcended her human form. Contemplating cosmic insignificance again, she inquired, unconsciously echoing Satana's question from previous evening. Wondering how I went from aspiring Hokage to dimensional keystone in less than a week, he replied with self-deprecating humor that momentarily resurfaced his pre-transformation personality. Unexpected smile touched Yugito's typically reserved features. Accelerated career advancement through interdimensional crisis, efficient if somewhat unorthodox path. This casual exchange revealed developing comfort between vessels, Ed experiences creating connections transcending normal acquaintance timeline. Their conversation continued through various topics, integration challenges, entity communication methods, adaptation techniques for managing expanded consciousness. Matabi and I achieved partnership through years of negotiation and mutual necessity, Yugito explained when discussion turned toward entity relationships. The Sidorak fragment introduced completely different dynamic, less conversational, more conceptual. Its perspective spans multiple dimensional cycles, yet lacks conventional personality framework. Zarathos communicates clearly but thinks in judgments spanning millennia, Naruto shared in return. Moral absolutes tempered by Kurama's more contextual perspective. Together they're creating something entirely new. Integration rather than mere cohabitation, Yugito observed with evident understanding. Synthesis beyond component entities. Their exchange continued as night deepened around Kumogakure. Vessel harmonics strengthening through shared communication and proximity. When Hinata eventually joined them, conversation expanded to include her unique perspective, visual perception extending beyond conventional dimensional boundaries, providing insights neither Jinchuriki could access through their respective entities. The mathematical patterns underlying reality become increasingly visible, she explained, describing her evolving perceptual framework. Not just chakra networks or conventional energy signatures, but foundational structures supporting dimensional boundaries themselves. As their discussion progressed, subtle energy connections between them strengthened further, attunement deepening through conscious interaction rather than ritual framework alone. This natural harmonization process represented crucial development in vessel functionality, preparing them for challenges awaiting in Land of Iron and beyond. Eventually conversation turned toward imminent XP addition and Lightning Emperor's potential identity. Intelligence reports provided limited information about unusual phenomena in samurai territory, unexplained electrical disturbances, strange weather patterns. Occasional sightings of armored figure generating lightning without conventional chakra techniques. The samurai traditionally reject chakra manipulation in favor of pure kenjutsu, Hinata noted. Recalling historical data from Hyuga archives, any manifesting energy abilities would face significant cultural resistance. Creating ideal isolation conditions for developing vessel, Yugito observed with clinical assessment. Social pressure containing power manifestation until critical threshold forces acknowledgement. Like psychological pressure cooker, Naruto concluded. Building energy with nowhere to release safely. This concerning analysis raised additional considerations for their approach strategy. Psychological support alongside vessel identification, cultural sensitivity in extraction protocols. Diplomatic complications beyond standard mission parameters. The Lightning Emperor potentially represented vessel under significant stress, requiring careful handling beyond simple location and retrieval. As they concluded evening's planning session and prepared for tomorrow's departure, each vessel processed developing situation according to their unique perspective. For Naruto, revelations about cosmic scale manipulation remained troubling despite apparent alignment with dimensional preservation goals. Questions about the remnant's true purpose persisted alongside growing suspicion that even entities like Zarathos and Kurama possessed only partial understanding of unfolding events. Morning brought final preparations before departure, equipment checks, communication protocols. Coordination with village leadership remaining behind. The joint expedition assembled at Kumogakure's main gate as dawnlight illuminated mountain peaks surrounding Shinobi Village. 3 confirmed vessels, 2-dimensional sorceresses, representatives from 3 major villages, unprecedented cooperation driven by existential threat transcending traditional boundaries. As they departed toward Land of Iron's distant territory, unnatural aurora pulsed overhead like cosmic heartbeat counting down toward inevitable confrontation. The vessels moved forward together, unified by purpose if not complete understanding. Behind them stretched path of awakening and discovery, before them waited Lightning Emperor and cosmic convergence whose ultimate nature remained veiled in dimensional mystery. Through it all, reality itself trembled at approaching crossroads where 7 keys would either lock or unlock the barriers keeping existence itself intact. Chapter 3 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.